I literally went from living a full life to being wheelchair, walker, cane. I had so much shame during that time. Then I had this thought or idea that just came into my mind. What about the placebo? If there's a percentage of people that just get better from the placebo, then I haven't exhausted all efforts yet. Maybe my mind could actually work. What I've been able to do is take people who are in physical pain, and then I show them how to use their mind. The fact that universe, God, divine energy, Mother Nature made our bodies so incredible that they can heal themselves is mind-blowing.
I've always wished that there was just an on switch you could hit. Oh, I'm doing the placebo thing. Boom, I'm healed.
This is what I think is the key behind the placebo is actually biophotons. Emotions and biophotons. How much can emotions really affect the physical body? Somebody can be scared to death. They can be so scared, their heart stops.
Tell me how you ended up rehabilitated physically for 6 years. And more importantly, how the hell did you keep your attitude intact to see it through?
I don't know that I kept my attitude in check the entire time, but I got it.
We'd have to check with your friends and family.
What's that?
We'd have to check with your friends and family.
Yeah.
I mean, not give up.
Yeah. You know, it was, there were multiple pieces, but basically a long story short. So I used to do network engineering and operations. And
what is that exactly?
I worked in tech, like telecommunications. So back when, like it's been a while, 20 plus years ago now, but internet. So connecting to internet for large companies.
Ah, okay.
So
got it.
I worked for WorldCom, MCI WorldCom, Nextel, so supporting the network structure.
Oh, okay. Got it.
So when things went down, I would also kind of like connect in remotely and troubleshoot things. So that's what was really helpful though, is the troubleshooting, because I was really, really good at it. And I think that helped me a lot to figure out how to heal myself. So, but a long story short, I had an accident, and technically 2 accidents. I had a car accident, which already messed up my back and all of that. And then I had a fall, and I fell just wrong, just right, however you want to say it. But I literally went from living a full life to being wheelchair, walker, cane. You know, on a good day, I could get around with my wheelchair or walker or cane. And on a bad day, I didn't make it out of bed. And that was my life. And I was on morphine, various forms, a ton of medication, but morphine, having nerve ablations, and just in so much pain that I just felt like I was going crazy.
What did you hit when you fell?
I fell. Basically, I fell kind of almost like into the splits, if you will, kind of like I slipped, but I landed like right on my spine. So the way they kind of explained it was kind of like taking Coke cans and kind of crushing them. So I had spinal end plate fractures. I also ended up with, it was called reflex neurodystrophy, but now it's called complex regional pain syndrome, but with nerve lesions and so I was a mess.
What were you doing when you fell? Were you just like walking into the garage or so?
I was walking. Thing? No, it was all the floor was really, really wet. So I was walking. The floor was wet, and I was yeah.
It's crazy how something like that can, something that severe can happen when you're not doing something risky. Right. I mean, if you were a mountain climber or a snowboarder, there's so many things that humans do that are so inherently dangerous. And obviously people get injured, and many people have hobbies like that for a very long time and never get injured. And then someone like you just is walking across the floor and is down for 6 years.
Okay, and not only that, but I have a history of like in martial arts. So I was in martial arts for years.
Really?
Oh yeah, like I have a black belt in martial arts. Oh yeah, like yeah, it was amazing balance. Like and actually that was the thing. Like even when I was in a wheelchair, I would, if I ever went somewhere, people all the time would say, "Oh my gosh, what happened?" And I would kind of joke around about it because I was trying to keep my spirits up and all of that. So I would kind of joke around and I would say, "I saved a family of 20 from a burning fire," and they would say, "Really?" And I'd say, "No, but I fell," because it was just. But I also didn't want to add more energy to it, so it was just kind of trying to make light of a not so light situation.
How did you manage the pain meds? Did you ever find yourself getting addicted to the opiates?
Surprisingly, no. So I was on OxyContin for a bit, but I actually asked them to take me off because it made me agitated.
Yeah.
So I didn't like
I'm
it at all.
familiar.
Yeah, like I was like, I was like, they were like, I was like, I'm allergic to it. They're like, what happens? I'm like, I turn into a bitch.
You get nasty. Yeah.
And I'm like but that's not me. Yeah. And so, so I was on that, but then I was on, they don't have it anymore, but I was on a Vinza, which was a 24-hour morphine within like Norco for breakthrough pain. So I was on that. And then I was on Neurontin and Lidoderm and a whole bunch of other things. Naproxen, Vioxx before it was taken off the market for killing people.
Oh my God. You had like a pharmacy run.
Oh yeah, I mean, like a.
And how did you continue? I mean, if I get too personal at any point, just shut it down. But
you can ask anything.
How did you support yourself during that period? That's something, when I think about things that I want to be depressed or worried about, I think, man, if something happened to me, I mean, I make a living doing this, right? It's like if something happened to me where I couldn't do my work, I don't have like money saved. I'm not recommending that. It's just I've just never been great at thinking about the future. But I think now, I'm 55 and I think, man, there's going to be a point at which I won't have the energy probably to do what I do. But that's a kind of a secret fear of mine. If I got sick or injured, it's like, wow, where would the money come from? So what did you do to support yourself during that period?
So at the time I had done network engineering and operations. So I had some savings, but that went very fast. And then I was on like short-term disability for the first part of it. Then I ended up on SSDI, which did not pay that much at all. And I owned my own house. So I had a house payment. But some things kind of worked out in that, not great, but my last year's injured. So I got like my 2009 was when I was really starting to figure out how to heal myself. And then in 2010, I was like, okay, I was back. Now during that time, the whole housing crisis happened. So it was kind of like the perfect storm. So I didn't pay my house payment for probably like 2008, 2009 was the whole housing market crash. So that was one way. I lived off of credit cards. That was another way. So it was, it was not good. It was not good. I had a couple wonderful friends who helped me out in some ways when it was a mess. So that and disability and like that. So
you skated through.
Yeah, I don't know that skated so well. I did end up short selling. Before they foreclosed on my house, I was like, they were doing that, and I was like, but can I just short sale it? So I ended up. So I ended up short selling it and kind of filing bankruptcy and, which was something I thought and I had so much shame during that time because I was like, I never saw myself as being a person who would be on disability, so to me, I was like, it was a thing. It was a thing.
And what was your emotional journey during that period? How did you keep a light at the end of the tunnel and have some sense of hope? Was that something that would come and go and wane, or did you have kind of a steadfast determination throughout that period that let you know that there's going to be a solution eventually? I just have to keep trying.
It was a bit of a roller coaster, to be honest. Less of a journey, more of a huge ups, huge downs.
A lot of peaks and valleys.
Peaks and valleys and some deep valleys. But I would say this is what kept me going. So after they told me I wasn't going to get better, there was nothing else they could do for me. Of course, it was like let me find this doctor, let me find that. Like, it was kind of like, okay, let me get a second opinion. And it was like, let me get a 15th opinion, kind of thing. So I kept looking. And then eventually, and I started, looking outside of the box, just anything that I could find. And eventually I got into this medical study. And that was my whole hope, is that, somebody would find something new, discover some new procedure or something, and that I would get my life back. And so there was this study, and leading up to the study, it felt like a kid counting down the days for Christmas. I just felt like I was going to get my life back, right? So I don't know if you ever did that as a child, where you take off the rings to each day coming down to Christmas, but that's how I felt. And so finally the study came. And they wheeled me in my wheelchair and got me all prepped for this procedure. And so I was like literally thinking, like laying there thinking about all the things I was going to do, the places I was going to go, just the people I was going to see. I was so excited. But the doctor, he comes in and he looks at me and he goes, you know, Miss Gilmore, we've re-reviewed your chart and we don't expect you to get better. You actually can't be a part of the study.
Oh.
Yeah. That was a valley. A big valley. So I literally, I mean, I felt like I swallowed a grapefruit. I was just trying to choke back the tears and I kind of at that point pulled a little bit of a Karen, if you will, and no offense to Karen, there's plenty of lovely ones, but so the term, I was like, let me speak to your manager. Like, this isn't like I came all the way in. And so long story short, they did end up giving, he basically said, he said, we'll go ahead and give you the experiment, but you can't be part of the study because we expect you'll ruin our results. Because we don't expect you to get better from it. And so they did.
A surgical procedure? Or
it was
drug?
Injections.
Okay.
It was, yeah. So to the best of my knowledge, they don't tell you much of what they're doing. So I believe it was a valley time. So I mean, I literally, after I left the hospital, I was exhausted. I don't know. The next memory I have, I woke up and I was in my same bed and I woke up and I just still had all of this pain. And I was just like, I can't live. I can't, like, what am I going to do? I can't do this anymore. And then I had this thought or idea that just came into my mind, this voice that came into my mind that was like, well, what about the placebo? And leading up to the study, I had been thinking to myself, don't get the placebo. I don't want the placebo. Please give me the real treatment. So now at this point, I was like, well, wait a second. So as I was wanting to give up, I was like, well, wait a sec, what about the placebo? If there's a percentage of people that just get better from the placebo, then I haven't exhausted all efforts yet. Maybe my mind could actually work. And so it sent me on this journey to figure out, how does it work? And your initial question was, you know, what kept me going? What kept me going is because then I found more research. And then I found more research. And the more that I found research, the more I could see that there was a way, there was something. I just had to figure out what that thing was.
I wish, and maybe you've solved some of this in your book and the work you do with people, but the placebo effect is so fascinating to me. And I've always wished that there was just an on switch you could hit, right? When you're in a situation, just like, oh, I'm doing the placebo thing. Boom, I'm healed, you know? Because it's like, it happens for people without them even knowing or trying. So it seems like it should be possible if you set all of your energy and intention toward placeboing yourself.
See, that's what's interesting. So it's a little tricky because typically speaking with the placebo, the results aren't healing and they're not lasting. So that's what's a little tricky is a lot of times the symptoms change, but the body doesn't necessarily heal. And so it was like this, but yeah, it was like, okay, well, how do you, that's exactly what I thought is I thought, well, how does it work? And you just have to believe. And then I thought, well, I have believed like 50 other things because I was trying every supplement that I could find, every diet, everything that I could find. And I believed a lot of these things. They had such great marketing. I thought, surely this is going to work. You know, I would spend my little money that I had on my credit card. Okay, this one's going to work. And then it didn't. And I was like, okay, this one's going to work. And so I was like, well, if the placebo, if it was just about belief, then it already would have worked.
Right. With any of the other interventions you tried, if you were excited about one and you believed, you know, you did some research and you saw that it had proven efficacy and data behind it, you would have believed in that, and therefore the placebo would have worked, right?
Exactly. But this is what I think is the key behind the placebo is actually biophotons.
Okay.
So
okay.
Emotions and biophotons.
Let's do this.
Okay.
You're speaking my language.
I like it.
Light.
Light. Exactly. This is something that's key about the placebo is that it's not like a lot of times people will think it's just belief, right? But if you think about it, the information is very specific. So in other words, if somebody feels like let's say it works and somebody has a belief that it's going to help with their blood pressure, it can. Or their Parkinson's, it can. Or on the flip side, on the nocebo, the negative, if they are told it could give them a rash, it can. So it's specific, detailed information. It's not just random, the body now heals itself. It's very detailed. And so that's what makes me think it's biophotons specifically communicating information, because biophotons can communicate information between cells. So that's why I would say it's biophotons plus emotions.
Did your background in networking, and I'm assuming you had some understanding of fiber optics?
Yep.
Was that something that
Yes.
came into play? I mean, your body's basically like a fiber optic network.
That is
in
the
a sense,
exact
right?
example, even in my book, that
Oh,
I use
cool.
is exactly that. I'm like, exactly. Like, the body's emitting light. And this is what's crazy, is that a lot of times people will think light energy from the body, oh, that's woo-woo, that's, oh, it's just your aura. But 100 years ago now, Alexander Gerswitch, identified biophotons from the body, and he was nominated for the Nobel Prize 11 times.
Wow.
So he was nominated 11 times for the Nobel Prize. And also, there's a modern day database that's run, it's under the NASA agreement, and it's run by the Smithsonian and Harvard. And basically, it has research on biophotons modern day. And so it's funny how people don't take biophotons seriously, and yet it's got all these Nobel Prize nominate. It's just amazing how valid it is, and you can see the studies on it. But the way I simplify it for people is I say this is like, an email, a text message. Those are sent via fiber optics. So it's like your body's sending emails to your cells, or text messages to your cells. It's sending information all around our body using light energy.
So take me back to the point at which you stumbled upon something that actually started to impact you, something that started to change your situation.
Well, that's tricky, because when you say change, I would say that, so after like the placebo and whatnot, I had been doing all of the things, the binaural beats, the vagus nerve, the relaxation, the meditation, the chanting, the affirmations, the mantras, you name it. I mean, my house sounded like an ashram. I was listening to like healing meditations, awake, asleep. I mean, and I didn't sleep much at that time because I was in so much pain. But I mean, I was literally, my house sounded like an ashram plus meditation plus affirmation. I was like, I didn't care. Like I was doing everything. I was writing like words on my water. I mean, I was doing every single thing that you could possibly think I was doing. And of course I could have ups and downs, and I could meditate, and I could get my pain to go down, and then it would just always come back and shoot back in really strong. So I would say to start getting results, or what worked, was kind of actually two different things.
Okay.
So
you were able to mitigate some of the, say, side effects of the injury doing all the things you just described, but you would kind of revert back even though you'd see some improvement. So there was a bit of kind of back and forth in terms of progress, 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of thing. And
was.
Then you hit a point where you're like, boom, now something is clicking.
Yeah. If you saw the things I was taped. My physical therapist was a lovely human being. Just out of the kindness of her heart, would literally come by my house and tape me with like tape from the bottom of or top of my neck down to my feet, with all of these different like tapes to try to help the nerve pain. I mean, everything, like, and reflexology on my hands. I mean, I was literally everything. And some things could get relief. What I would say, one turning point happened when, there were a lot of different like aha moments and turning points. And one, I had this friend who was dying from lung cancer at the same time that I was injured. And she was doing a lot of the same things, all the positive energy things and the mind things and all of these things. And she got to a point where she had been in hospice for quite a while, and she was not really conscious for a long period of time, and she was on her final days. And so another friend called me up and she said, it's time to go say goodbye if you want to say goodbye. And so I went to say goodbye. And as I left, I thought to myself, that's what I look like. Because I saw her just laying there and not conscious. And a lot of my day, I was in my head in like theta state, trying to just maintain these states for healing, so to speak. And I thought, well, gosh, if she's been like that for months. So if that's so healing, well, why hasn't she healed? Why haven't I
interesting.
healed?
Right.
And it was kind of jarring. It was like, well, I need to do something different. Right? It just kind of like one of those moments where it's like, well, it didn't work for her and we've been doing the same things. And, and it just, it made me rethink the whole relaxation thing. And say, well, wait a second, there's a lot of people. If healing was just relaxation, then anybody in a coma would wake up and be healed from everything.
That's a good point.
Right? So I think just as I started to look at everything objectively, it really helped a lot. And so that's, I would say, so I just started looking and I said, okay, what do I need to do different? And as I was researching through the medical journals, I started looking at research on multiple personality disorder.
Oh, right.
Okay, right. Now there were
that
studies.
Shit is a trip.
Yes, yeah. Right.
We're like, in one personality, someone's blind, and another one they're not.
Like, see,
what is happening?
Yes, and I mean, there's another one, which was also, there's a Holocaust survivor. There's a lot of research on another woman who, like in some personalities, she has headaches. In another personality, she has asthma. Another one, she's healed. Another one, she's got neck pain or chronic pain. And so, yeah, different personalities. Now, so of course, I was like, well, how do I get a personality who's healed?
Totally. Totally. I wouldn't mind having a couple spare ones, I've had a really crappy morning today. I was like, man, if I could have switched out into like happy positive Luke for that first hour of the day.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, and not to make light of multiple personality disorder, and now of course called DID, but yeah, that's exactly. I was like, well, how do I get a personality that's healed? And so it sent me on that journey. Not only that, but the other exciting part was this, as I was like, wait a second, I've been meditating for 5 years at that point, or 5.5 or something like that. And I was like, they switch out of pain in minutes. How do I do that? Right? I was like, then blind in one personality, not in another. I'm like, well, wait a second. Well, then why am I doing this the slow way? So it really actually made me start looking at things in a whole different way.
So take us into that. What's going on with this segmentation in the mind and the conscious mind versus the subconscious mind and all of that, right? It's like when say you go to a party and there's a bunch of people there that have a cold or something, right? It's like, I've noticed, because I just don't believe you catch colds from being around people that have colds, at least not for the reasons that people commonly think. So I'm never worried about it, and I never get colds being around sick people.
Exactly. I never got COVID.
I have a strong belief that that's not going to happen. So I feel like, you can kind of, it's like worry is praying for what you don't want to happen kind of thing, right? That if you really strongly believe that something negative is going to happen, it's much more likely to happen. So it's like, it seems like the conscious mind does have a lot of power, but then in dealing with things like trauma and addiction and, various other issues that we have, there are so many things that are just beyond the reach of the conscious mind that it doesn't matter how positive your attitude or how strong your belief, there's something way back in the recesses of the mind that are preventing you from healing or changing or moving forward.
Mm-hmm. See, I would say even belief, when I look at it, I would say it also has to do with the underlying emotions. Because what's also interesting is, like, there's even studies on the open label placebo. And are you from, like,
Uh-huh.
basically it's open label. So they know it's a placebo and it still works. Yeah.
God, we're such weird creatures. Humans are such a trip.
We are, right?
Such a trip.
Right? That was another mind-bending thing, because then I thought, okay, it's about belief. I went through that whole phase where I said, I just have to believe. And I was literally like forcing myself hours, like I'm believing that I was already healed. And it just, but the open label placebo was like, okay, well, there goes that.
So talk to me about what you started to discover, with the biophotons and looking at the multiple personality phenomena. What pieces started to come into place that have led you to being who you are now, writing a book about how you can heal yourself.
So this is what I did. There was,
and we have plenty of time. So like earlier you said, oh, long story short, I'm like, it doesn't need to be short. I want everything you've got, because I know there's so many people listening, and myself included, that have spent so much time, energy, and money on all the things, trying to heal whatever, or just be optimal, right? And not seeing results.
That was me.
It's so frustrating.
It is,
So help us avoid that.
That's how I got into this. I literally thought, by the way, as after I healed, I was just going to like give the information to my doctors and they would then help everybody.
Oh yeah. Walk into the hospital. Hey guys, I have a discovery. Okay, get in line, lady.
Yeah. So that's why I see so often people are in that same place where they've been years and years, exactly 10, 20, 30 years, not getting the results that they want. So the difference. So this is what I started doing, and amongst other things, because I was, looking at atoms of the body and the biophotons and all of the things, the different parts of the brain and all of the things. And so we could dive into all that. But on a simple note, some of the breakthroughs were this, is I said, okay, look, how can I see that the mind affects the physical body? Well, emotions. Somebody's embarrassed, their face turns red. Okay. We can see that. Somebody can have a panic attack, racing heart, shortness of breath. We can see that. And I thought, okay, yeah, we know that. And I said, okay, well, how much can emotions really affect the physical body? Well, somebody can be scared to death. They can be so scared, their heart stops. Somebody can die of a broken heart, where they lose somebody they love and they can actually die from that. Or a senior can lose a spouse and have a much higher rate of death. So we know that emotions can impact us to the point of death. And I said, okay, I see that. I said, but let me look at this objectively. If this were true, then somebody with PTSD, there's people like officers or military who have severe trauma, severe PTSD, who are not sick. How does that work? And what I began to figure out was it takes a combination of emotions. That's the key. And a simple way to think about it is like this. If somebody wants to make cake and they have flour, they can't make cake. But if they have flour and they mix it with eggs and butter, vegan eggs and butter, and other ingredients or whatnot, now they have cake. They change the ingredients. Now they have a different recipe. And so the key was identifying the specific emotions, because we can also see that emotions are very specific. If somebody's embarrassed, their face can turn red, but they could feel panic and anxiety. That's a different thing. So basically the combination is specific, and that was the key. And that's how I figured out also how it was possible for somebody with multiple personality disorder to have different illnesses and different personalities, because the different combination of emotion.
They have different emotional profiles.
Exactly.
Interesting.
So I've worked with people then with multiple personality disorder. And so it's amazing. And that's what, even now when I show it under medical equipment, I don't know if you saw my thermal imaging scans, but.
No, I haven't.
Okay, so.
Ooh, can we put those in the show notes? By the way, those listening and watching, the show notes for today's episode are lukestore.com/Brandy, and we'll put those images in there.
Yeah, and there's a link. It's in a medical journal, so I think you guys have that link too.
Oh, cool.
So you can look at but there's images and basically kind of to describe what they are, it's this. It's like if you imagine somebody, so with the medical thermal imaging, it's basically like a picture of, let's say, somebody's neck and upper back.
Mm-hmm.
And on the image, if they have pain, you can see it's all red.
Yeah.
Okay. And
thermography.
Yeah.
For ladies listening, it's a great alternative to what's the things they do to the boobies to scan them?
Wash them.
Yeah. What's that called?
Oh my
mammogram.
God. Mammogram thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mammograms are seemingly pretty problematic. So
yes,
my wife and I went and got her thermography, so I'm familiar with the imaging.
Okay.
Kind of shows hot
Perfect.
spots, right? Where there's
Yeah.
inflammation or pain, right?
Yeah, or tumors and all kinds of,
Yeah.
So a simple way to think about it is, for anybody who might be new to it, is like if you've ever sprained your ankle or had a cut or an infection, you can feel the heat from it. And so thermography is this advanced heat detection that can detect things from like tumors, infection, and all of that. So basically what I've been able to do is take people who are in physical pain, and then I show them how to use their mind, and you can literally see in real time as the image goes from red to green as their pain goes away.
What? How long does that take? Is this like is someone doing this for 6 months and you do it before and after, or is it in the moment?
Oh, it's like on like in the link that the medical journal. Let's say one person was like 22 minutes, another person was 28 minutes.
Oh wow!
And like the example of the one that was 28 minutes, he had a level 6 of pain. It went down to 0, and you can see the image change. And what's great is a few things. Is that first and foremost, like with this gentleman, when I worked with him, you can see the pain shift. And then when he stood up, he said, the first thing he says is, he was something to the effect of, I can't believe this actually worked. I just came from a 10-day meditation retreat.
Oh, shit.
So, and before that, he went to like a 5-day positive empowerment workshop. So what was great is you can also see that, number one, he didn't even think it would work anyway. So it's not just belief in placebo. And so, but nobody really believes that their chronic pain is going to be gone in 20 minutes or whatnot. Now, I always tell people, though, they have to then rewire, make that change permanent. It's like multiple personality disorder, if you will. Basically, I help them to shift to a mindset that doesn't have pain, but if they go back into the old, it can come back. But the thing of it is that's where I see the body heal. So I've seen people heal themselves from autoimmune conditions or tumors or all kinds of things by then creating this shift. And I've seen the body heal from amazing things.
So at one point, when you were sure that you were kind of over the hump with the issues you had, I'm assuming you felt compelled to share this information with other people, and that's kind of led to your book, and you work with people now, right? Do I have that?
Yeah, I teach classes.
Okay.
And work with
Yeah.
people. Yeah.
So I'm going to keep backtracking. At what point did you realize you'd stumbled upon something that was working, and you're like able to get up and walk around, and your pain starting to decrease? Like, how long did that period take where you thought, wow, I think I'm onto something here. I'm seeing results, to that is something in my past and I'm actually healed now on the other side of it?
It's tricky because I think that because with meditation, I could get my pain down. So, but then it always came back. And so it never really healed. So I would say it was I was skeptical. So I was like, okay, well, this is happening. Like, I'm getting better. Like, okay, here's another good day. Like, okay. So it was, I was pretty skeptical, but I was like, okay, I felt like I went through this period of time where it was like every day I felt like I could do something more that I couldn't do. It was like, I don't know, I was in like happy tears every day. But it was just this feeling of like having a good day and then a good day and then an even better day. And then I felt like I started like doing, just practicing all kinds of things. Like I had walked with a cane, so I was working on walking without a cane. That's when I found out I had to also get my balance back. So it was just this process of of rehabilitation, if you will. It just so many things.
And what helps with what helps to stop the regression, right? So as you mentioned a few minutes ago, somebody starts making some progress, right? But then they kind of slip back into the inertia of their old way of thinking, their old way of feeling. With what you've learned and working with people, what does it take to actually lock that change in? I'm thinking about neuroplasticity and some of the work that's being done now with psychedelics, even microdosing psychedelics. Like there's things you can do to increase your neuroplasticity for a period of time and then insert some modality or practice in that window and kind of lock it in. What have you found in terms of making the change or the healing more permanent?
A few things. Establishing new, so I call it positive emotional patterning. So one thing is that whatever the new programming is, it has to become a patterned way of being, right? So it's really, there's depth to it, but it's kind of like this. You hear people say all the time, okay, let's do positive thinking. But positive thinking doesn't establish really new neural pathways, right? That's like me saying, I just want to speak a language. I'm going to speak German, Italian, French, Spanish, Russian, Mandarin, and all of that. Well, it doesn't. So a lot of times positive thinking is just, it doesn't establish new neural pathways, if you will. And so because patterns or emotions are very, there's patterns. So even if we take for a moment, if we ground this, if we think about Freud's work or we think about repetition, compulsion, reenactments, or patterns breed more of the same. So we could look at a simple example. We could say that unfortunately somebody may have a pattern of feeling criticized, and then that pattern can repeat over and over, or somebody can have a pattern of trauma and that pattern can repeat over and over again. And so our brains work in patterns, or if somebody can have a pattern of anger or a pattern of frustration or whatever it is, right? And so establishing positive emotional patterning where somebody decides on a specific patterned way of being and then bringing that in and establishing it as a new pattern is key, right? So there's that. Now, also understanding that emotions can shift consciousness. And so there's something that I call emotion-controlled consciousness. And it's this. It's that on a deeper level, our emotions are always, there's a lens. They create a lens of what we see. And a simple example is like this, is that if somebody's really, really in love, what do they see? They see all of the good in the person, right? If they're really, really mad at somebody or angry, they see what? They see all the negative. Do they do that on purpose? They don't. So the mind automatically, they don't say, okay, well, I'm mad at this person. I'm only going to see the negative. I'm happy with this person. I'm only going to see the positive. The mind filters it. And so ultimately what happens is that to create healing, the emotion-controlled consciousness needs to shift at a deeper level. This is key because if not, the pattern's always going to come back because you're seeing it that way. And so a lot of times what happens is people are not creating a change deep enough in the mind. And so then they're trying to they have this lens and then they're going, I'm not going to be afraid. I'm not going to look at that. I'm not going to be. But eventually it breaks them down no matter how hard they're trying to positive think against it.
Yeah.
And so it's establishing the new patterns and positive emotional patterning, but also then shifting that consciousness at a deeper level.
I mean, perception is everything. And I've found that it's much more difficult to view an experience in life from a positive perspective when I'm emotionally trashed. You know what I mean? It's
Yes.
like if I'm well slept and I'm, like I have vitality and energy, it's much easier for me to be the witness of the mind and not be at the effect of it. Where say like I'm jet lagged and underslept, I'll have a negative thought and I'll have much less resistance to it. And if that thought if I give it some energy, to say I'm complaining about something in my mind, or like for me, it's usually having to do with the government, right? So I'll start thinking negative thoughts. I start feeling bad. And then I start viewing the world as hostile or annoying or hopeless or whatever the case may be. And it's much harder to resist that habit and follow that pattern if I don't feel good. I think this is something that people really struggle with it, or dealing with chronic illness, right? Is like, how do you think positive and evoke these positive emotions when you just, you can't sleep, or you're just completely smoked physically because of whatever you're going through?
Absolutely. And, it's so interesting because it's also like deeper, even on how do I put it? Like, it's even deeper than the day to day, if that makes sense. So maybe a way to illustrate that would be if you had asked me if I was an optimist prior to my injury, I would have said 100%. Like, absolutely, always have been. I was born motivated. Like, I always felt like an optimist. Now, as I worked on healing myself and really finding the stuff that was in my subconscious mind and shifting it, my lens of life changed, and I started seeing, I didn't realize I saw the world in fear, but I saw the world through a lens of fear, and I didn't even know that I saw it like that because I was just so used to it. I thought this is how life is.
Right.
So, and if you had asked me, if I was in fear, I would have said no. I grew up in martial arts. I was always very confident. Like I think the one time my mother cried growing up, I remember, I didn't grow up from an emotional family. It's like you kind of get your stuff together. It wasn't I wouldn't have said that I was traumatized. And yet I had a lens of fear that was coloring things, and I didn't realize it. And I would also say, just the mind, it's like, it's kind of like this. When people do talk about bringing in positive emotions, they talk about doing what? Gratitude, right? I didn't realize I was being triggered by gratitude, right? So the thing of it is, I had survivor's guilt. So here I was practicing gratitude practices. I'm so grateful for this. I'm so grateful for this. But when you have survivor's guilt, bringing in gratitude is probably not a good thing.
Oh, that's insane.
Yes. So what I would say is, just so many things that people do with the mind is really opposite of what we need to do. And you would, simple little things. And so, but important. It would seem simple, but yeah. So, and a lot of people, they have feelings of undeserving or selfish, like judgment towards being selfish or guilt or whatever from the past. And then they go to bring in gratitude practices, and they don't realize they're triggering the very thing that they're supposed to be healing. And that was part of what was going on for me was, I mentioned that I worked in network engineering operations. So I did that during the events of 9/11. And so during the events of 9/11, I was on the phone with colleagues who were in the tower. So I worked here in California, so I wasn't there, but my shift was 5 a.m. to 2 p.m. And so I was in the office at the time on the phone with a colleague. And so at the time, my colleague then started, yelling, help me, and then the phone went dead. And so, yeah. And if you asked me if it traumatized me, I would have said no. I would have said all I care about is I just want to help. So I wouldn't have said, if you said, were you traumatized? I would have said, no, they're traumatized. They're hurt. So it didn't feel like it was about me. It felt like it was about them, but that I had that feeling of survivor's guilt. But it was also because we always needed to know current events at that time. So as I sat at my desk, all of these different television stations were on, playing the footage over and over and over again from the events of 9/11 and whatnot. And so you watch this, and it just, repeatedly got in my subconscious mind. And then also, I then later started, would go across the Bay Bridge, and there were tanks on the side. So it created a deeper fear in me, but also like this feeling of expecting to die, but also this feeling of feeling survivor's guilt, like I should go die for others. And you see these firefighters going in, dying to save people, and it felt like I should be doing something more. So I had this feeling of guilt, and then to get off work or be happy and to go do things, I didn't feel like that was okay for me to do, and so it hit me in a way that it wasn't, I didn't register it as trauma, I registered it as guilt also. So that was really at the core of a lot of what was going on for me.
We're living in the most advanced time in human history. So why are so many of us exhausted, wired, and barely holding it together? Back when I started this podcast in 2016, I was living under 2 cell towers in LA, and it was a nightmare. I had insomnia, migraines, blurred vision, vertigo, nausea. My system was just maxed out. It was absolutely terrible. So when I moved to Texas, I hardwired the internet, shielded our bedrooms, and did all the physical EMF mitigation you can imagine. But here's the unfortunate reality. You can't eliminate every signal unless you live in a cave. And that's what led me to Quantum Upgrade. It harmonizes the field you live in so your body stays coherent inside all that static that you can't control. And this isn't just a feeling. Their research shows improvements in HRV, brainwave balance, and cellular energy. It's pretty simple, really. If your system is under less stress, you're going to feel it, and I do. What does that look like? Well, I sleep deeper, I think more clearly, and I don't feel wrecked by my environment anymore. So if you want to upgrade your whole situation right now, here's what you do. Go to lukestory.com/quantum upgrade and use the code Luke15 to start your 15-day free trial. If you want your space working for you instead of against you, this is one of the smartest upgrades you can make. Again, that's lukestory.com/quantum upgrade, and that code is Luke15 to get 15 days totally free. You can also find those links and codes in the show description. Talk to me about how subconscious beliefs and unresolved emotional issues manifest as mysterious illness in the body.
What I would say is that you said unconscious beliefs and unresolved, it's so interesting because every illness has different emotional connections to it, but even things that you would think are benign can affect the physical body, and I think that's also what it makes it very confusing. And let me give you an example to kind of ground this and make it simple. Have you ever seen this before where maybe a young child, let's say a 2-year-old child, falls down and gets an owie, and a loving adult comes by and says, let me kiss it and make it better, right? Now what happens, let me kiss that owie. Love can get linked up to illness in that very moment, right? Now,
shit.
See it all the time. Now, this is what happens. Play it forward. A person can then have illness, this illness, that illness, this little thing going on, and that's kind of a pattern of love and illness that they have throughout their life. And maybe it's, the knee pain or the back pain or whatever, but it kind of goes through their life, and maybe after a while it gets worse because maybe the knee pain doesn't work anymore or the back pain doesn't work to get love and connection. So then subconsciously, it can then increase. Or what can happen is this. A person they don't have the illness or the injury, but let's say they turn 30, 40, 50, 60 years old, and they go through a period of time where they're really lonely in life. And so they're feeling really lonely. Maybe they had a divorce, or maybe they're just disconnected or whatnot, midlife, whatever, and waking up going, I need some more love. The subconscious mind can even say, well, I know how to get love. That's right. Owie. Then it wants to create illness, not because it wants to, but because that's what's linked up in the subconscious mind. And so it's just about being real with what's real. And so that's the ingredients, if you will, is that it's tricky. So in another person, let's say a another example of a person that I worked with who their friend, so you were mentioning earlier that contagious part, their friend was diagnosed with breast cancer, and a couple things happened. Number one, she felt very guilty about having her own good health as her friend was being sick, so now she felt guilty about being healthy. And then also, they had grown up together. So her self-image was like, well, she saw herself as being like her. So then in her self-image, she was going to get it also. She felt guilty, so that emotional ingredients all came in. And so that's the key, is understanding that there's these different pieces that are at play, and that identifying those and then really changing those, that's the key. And so that's when I've seen people, even, like when I worked with people in the medical journal, showing it under thermography, that's exactly what I do, is I help people identify the specific emotions, what are the specific things, and then help them change it. And that's when I see incredible results.
Tell me about some of the specific things that you were doing as you started to feel better. Like, walk me through a practice, early on when you started cracking the code. I mean, are you'd already tried all the meditation and positive affirmations and going into theta states with the binaural beats and all this stuff. Walk me through, what did it look like for you to get in to your subconscious mind and start to see the things that were lurking in there, or unprocessed emotions? Like, when did it start to develop into an actual modality, before you started sharing it with other people? Are you waking up at a certain time, doing a certain thing? Like, what does the practice look like?
What did the practice look like? There were different pieces at different times to say it. It's kind of like, and it should be a progression. And this is why. It's like, what does the practice of high school look like, or college look like, or any, like, there's a shift to it, if you will, right? So one thing was this. So I'll give you like different pieces, and feel free to ask anything. I just,
cool.
A couple things that were really helpful was for me to access really, really high vibration, positive emotions would have been impossible to do, because I was I was at a really bad low when I was like, I just have to figure this out. I was in all of this, financial stress, physical stress, about everything. There's this fear, and so as much as, and don't get me wrong, I was good at positive thinking. I could put a smile on my face. I could laugh, and you would not know that anything was going on, like, other than the fact that I, was in extreme pain, and
Except for the wheelchair over there.
the wheelchair, and yeah. But I could laugh on top of it and just be like, okay, it just, for the most part. But I kept people time limited, because I could I could hold a straight face and a happy face for a limited amount of time. And then it was like, okay, I just need to be by myself. But a couple things. Okay. So basically I started looking at it like this. I said, okay, if I need to get high vibration, if I need to get a real feeling in repeatedly, how do I do that? Right? Because it's kind of like this. If you're going to create a new neural pathway for learning a new language, what do you have to do? You have to get it in repeatedly over and over and over again. If you're going to learn the alphabet, how do you do that as a kid? You get it in over and over and over and over again, which means that, okay, well, if I'm going to create a new actual emotion, not just an affirmation over and over and over and over and over again, but an actual emotion where I'm accessing that emotion over and over and over and over and over again, that would have been nearly impossible for me to do repeatedly every day, like clockwork, to actually do that. So I just started taking music, right? Songs where I set aside all the affirmation, like the calm ones, because I also realized, I said, well, if these calming things, because with my friend who was died of lung cancer, I said, well, if it's so, I said, I need something that's going to create an impact, because what impacts the mind fast? Not the mundane, but amplified things. So somebody gets married, that impacts their emotions. Somebody has a trauma, that impacts their emotions. So I thought, well, if I'm going to make neural pathways and I'm going to do this calm, it's going to take me 100 years. Like, I don't know that there's going to be anything that's really, really impactful. So I thought, okay, I'm going to amplify emotions repeatedly over and over and over again. Part of the reason I also wanted to do that is because I was reading research and it was like, if you can listen to music at the same time as you can, like an amplified state, it can help trigger the release of positive biochemistry, endorphins, dopamine. So I was also at that time kind of chasing endorphins, dopamine, serotonin, all of those things because I had tried nootropics and all like I was the chemist also of making my body do all of these different things that didn't work. But ultimately it was the way I started thinking about it was like this, is I said, okay, if I could just get my pain down even more, gosh, that would be so nice, right? Because I was already on morphine. I was already on Neuron. I was already on Norco. I was already on the things and I was still in pain. So I thought, well, if I could maybe increase my endorphins, maybe that would help. So it was the mixture of, it was a concoction of ideas, if you will. But so I started listening to music and I would listen to a song and I would just amplify my emotions over and over again, like an exercise, not like I'm listening to positive music, but like an exercise. So working on really amplifying over and over and over and over again to get good at it. Now, sometimes people will hear this and they think, oh, you mean like a happy, positive playlist? No, I mean like 1 or 2 songs repeatedly over and over and over again, like a wedding song. Like somebody hears their wedding song and they melt, right? So it was linking up over and over and over again so I could access the same emotion over and over and over again. So that was one thing. So I started creating new positive neural pathways, and that was one thing that I did.
So you're evoking a really strong positive emotion, just high joy, ecstasy, and building a discipline and a practice around that, right? Where I put on this certain song that maybe has some association with a positive experience of the past, or just a song that gets me hyped and super happy. I'm listening to that song and then just like welling up the energy, putting the energy of that emotion on 10 as much as I can. Is that the idea?
Yeah. So like the first one I
there's
chose
certain
was,
songs for me, I mean, every once in a while, be on a road trip, right? And just turn on a certain song and I'm just like amped.
yes.
Maybe I haven't heard it in a while. There's one that comes to mind, Rolling Stones, Can't You Hear Me Knocking? Anyone that's a Stones fan will know that riff. It's just the best thing ever. It gets me so hyped every time.
Go. Yes.
So
right.
like I would do it, for example, I would listen to that if I was going to do a talk somewhere. I sit in my car and crank that up and just get myself totally amped.
Right.
That kind of
exactly.
thing? Okay.
So I turned off all the meditation music and started doing and I would do it like.
What was one of your songs?
First one was Beautiful Day by U2.
Okay.
Walking on Sunshine by Katrina and the Waves.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, I'm going to Walking on Sunshine and it's going to feel good. Why? Because also every movement that I had also hurt. Even breathing at times hurt.
So walking would be good.
So Walking on Sunshine.
Feeling really good walking. Okay.
Yeah. Another one was like Michael Jackson, Man in the Mirror. Of course, altered it to Woman in the Mirror, but it was like going to make a change and it's going to feel really good because I was like programming myself. Okay, I have to change me. I have to change my mindset. So each one was at different times because it was really about establishing new neural pathways and also amplifying the emotion as much as I possibly could.
Okay, got it.
So that. Another thing that was so silly and ridiculous is that all of the time people place positive thinking on top of what's really there. And I started using this where as I was working on kind of figuring out how to release emotions from my mindset, genuinely, not suppress them, which I was very good at, but actually releasing them, I got to this point where I couldn't tell if I was actually feeling something or not. So then I call it emotion contrast technique, but I would literally try to contrast it with something that's ridiculous. And it would be kind of like this. can you find the feeling of what it used to feel like in the past to feel like a 97-year-old monkey wearing a string bikini? No, never felt that. Okay, can you feel this feeling of feeling guilt about blah, 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 blah? Yes, I can feel that. Okay, one is in my subconscious mind, one is not, right? So that level of depth of, because a lot of times what happens is when people are meditating or positive thinking or affirmations, they're further suppressing all of that stuff. So instead of further suppressing it, I was going, okay, let me identify that and then let me really change that. So by doing that contrast, it would help me to see how much of that is really actually still there. So then I could get rid of the rest of that. So that simple thing was key. And I it was silly because the way I thought about it was like this. As I was working with my mind, I literally was at this point. I was like, I don't even know what I'm feeling anymore. And what came into my mind was, I don't know if you've ever done this, I don't know, but at the fragrance counter in like a department store or whatnot, if you're smelling different perfumes and they all start to smell the same. Have you ever done that before? Maybe not.
I mean, I think
your wife maybe's done that. I don't know.
It's been a long time since I've been in a department store, but
yes.
I would probably run right past it because I don't want to breathe all that stuff in. But I get
okay,
the point,
yes.
yeah.
And this was 20 something years ago.
For me, like incense is kind of like that, right? Like I get an incense that I really like, and it sits around in the house, and then I light another one, and over the course of a year, they're kind of all the same. I can't differentiate them.
There you go. So but you have to remember,
that.
I've been healed now for 16 years. So this is 20.
Yeah.
But yeah, so at the time, that's what I thought. I thought it's like the departments, when you go in and you smell different perfumes, and I couldn't smell the difference. And what happens is you smell coffee beans, and it kind of clears your olfactory senses. And so that was kind of the thing. So basically, in long and short, that's what I did. Is I started contrasting emotions, and instead of further suppressing them or putting affirmations on top, I instead said, "Can I find this feeling? Oh, I still can. Can I find this?" And I worked to a point where I figured out how to not, so it was just gone. So it was not there. I wasn't suppressing it. I wasn't saying I'm just avoiding it. I'm putting happy thoughts on top of it. I instead went and looked for it and then said, okay, so even then if I said, okay, well, how much can I find the feeling of guilt from the past? 0 to 10, a 10 at the time. And then I said, okay. So then I got it down to like a 4, and it's like, okay. And really, really rewired it. And what I also realized is it was not just the events of 9/11, it was a pattern, so the pattern had actually started in my childhood of survivor's guilt. I grew up with religious, in a lot of religion and Lutheran and Catholic and all of those things. And so, as a child, I always, there was always the thought of Jesus dying on the cross for other people. And so it was like, you're supposed to put other people first and die for others and whatnot. That was how to be good. And so I felt guilty that I wasn't doing that. So it was blended with childhood beliefs.
So when you're going in and facing or bringing those negative emotions to the surface, something like guilt or shame, and as you said, there's a certain point where you identify it, it's at a 10, and then through kind of facing it and working through it, you bring it down to a 4, and then eventually 0, where that isn't driving you. When you identify it, what's the process of actually getting it out of your system or diffusing it to the point where it's no longer holding you in that pattern of illness or pain?
So that's another key piece. So basically, there's something that I call the 4 innate emotional energy needs, or the mind, body, soul, spirit needs. And we have emotional needs, if you will. Like, we need love and connection. We need a sense of safety. So we have certain emotions that we as human beings need. And if we take love, for example, if an infant doesn't get enough love, they can actually die. And so we can see that we have these needs. And so what happens though is the mind can get miswired to meeting these needs in an unhealthy way. And it keeps the mind in loops. And a simple way to illustrate that is to think about this, is if you imagine somebody who got in an accident. And so they're feeling afraid. They got in a car accident or whatnot, so they're feeling afraid. And then they feel like they need to hold on to fear to keep them safe. Now what happens is they have to stay in fear to keep them safe. Now, if they start to let go of the fear, what happens? They're afraid to let go of the fear. So now if they're afraid to let go of the fear, they actually trigger more fear to try to let it go because they've linked up in their mind. It keeps them safe to hold on to the fear to keep them alert. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
So often I see people working with their mind to let go of fear who are triggering themselves because they're trying to let go of the fear that's linked up at a deeper level of their mind that's keeping them safe. Okay?
Yeah.
So ultimately, it's about rewiring these needs at a deeper level, ultimately relinking up what makes a person feel safe or what makes a person feel loved or connected at a deeper level, because that's the key. So the more that we rewire the mind at a deeper level, then it becomes easy to make the changes that we really wanted to make. So but the way that most people are doing it is they're actually triggering the very problem.
God, humans are so complex, man.
But when you think about it, it makes logical sense.
Totally, yeah. It's just, we're such amazing creatures. We're like, our complexity is what makes us so amazing, but also what makes life very difficult at times.
But this is the brilliant thing is, so when I've done this under medical equipment and I show people, I've been able to show back to back to back to back results. And even to a point, like I'll speak at an event and I'll take people from stage and I'll just take volunteers who are experiencing physical pain and I show them how to release it.
Really?
Like back to back to back. It's amazing. And of course they're doing it. I'm just showing people how to do it. And it's just literally, it's just working with the mind in a different way. And the thing is that the mind can get linked up to where it's miswired, and it happens all of the time. And in a simple example or unfortunate example is that, if you think about a cutter for a moment, somebody who unfortunately has been through a trauma and is now cutting themselves. So if they're cutting themselves, so they can feel a sense of relief or euphoria or control or safety from cutting themselves. It doesn't make logical sense, but it can get linked up. And so it really just is about becoming real with what's real. That's the thing, I think that's the problem, is that I think, when I was doing all of the meditation and the affirmation and all these things, it was great. But when I started to just simplify and go, well, emotions affect the physical body. Okay. And then I just started getting really super logical. And I said, if you think about it, we know that embarrassment affects somebody's, the blushing, anxiety, panic attack, sexual thoughts, create a sexual physical response. Now, would it really make sense that these 5 emotions affect the physical body and the rest of the emotions, they just do nothing?
Right. That brought to mind a common saying when somebody's afraid, they say, oh man, I almost shit my pants.
Yes.
Or when they're really terrified, they'll pee themselves,
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's actually in my book.
Oh,
because
really?
then people also do this. Oh, so-and-so's a pain in the neck or pain in the ass.
Right.
Or, I feel like I'm going to get stabbed in the back. Or totally, absolutely, the idioms. We have a lot of them. Or I feel weak in the knees. Or
right.
I feel sick to my stomach.
Right.
Oh, yeah. It's all there. So I would say that I would say part of the complexity is the placebo, because that adds in. But I would say that if we just, like, the reason that I would say that I was able to figure out how to heal myself is because I added actually a ton of logic. That's what I would say I did different, is I said, okay, well, let me simplify this. And I would say, when I said, okay, well, these 5 emotions affect the physical body, what do I think the rest of them are doing nothing? And then I said, well, that doesn't make much sense. And so and I would say, and then starting to, of course, look at things objectively and say, okay, but if it was just emotions, somebody's PTSD, severe trauma, and everybody would be sick. So I'd say just looking at the anomalies. So instead of running from the anomalies, looking at the anomalies and saying, well, how does that work? Why? I would say that.
It sounds like your approach is kind of the antithesis of spiritual bypassing or emotional bypassing, right? It's like I think one of the downsides to just positive thinking and affirmations is like you're kind of glossing over the depth of those negative emotions that you alluded to, that no matter how much your conscious mind is trained to think positive, and today's going to be a great day, and I'm just going to put a smile on my face, there's things underneath that that are preventing that from being authentic and and lived, right?
Yeah. Do you want to see something else?
I want to see everything.
Okay, ready? Have you ever heard somebody who's afraid to get their hopes up?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know how many people are thinking positive and triggering themselves all the time?
Wow.
All of the time. It's just have to be real with what's real. And the problem is just people are like, slap some gratitude at it, think some positive, and they don't actually like think it through. Like, why would you tell somebody who's afraid to get their hopes up to think positive? You're triggered. Like, it's just radical
What is
logic.
up with that? Thinking of that thing we commonly say, I don't want to get my hopes up, but here's what I would like to happen. That's really interesting. I never thought about that.
Exactly. So exactly that.
Because I do that in a way, but I don't think I really say that because it's not the way I think. But, as I was telling you, you've got your book here, and congratulations on finishing one. It's been quite a journey for me, as I was telling you. But I have dreams and goals for what I hope my book can do and how many people it can reach and so on. And I won't think like negatively, but if I start to set an expectation, I feel like I'm setting myself up for disappointment, So it's like, well, here's what I'd like to happen, but I'm leaving it in God's hands. It's like kind of just the surrendered way that I approach life. But I feel like if I get attached to a certain outcome, it's not that I don't deserve it or I'm afraid it won't happen. It's just, I actually think what God has in store for me is much more exciting, grand. It's going to serve me in a higher way than whatever little ideas I have, right? So it's like, I've had so many times in my life where I get attached to an outcome and then I'm disappointed. And then a little time goes by and I realize like, oh, God had something way cooler in store. I was actually selling myself short with the little dream that I had because the way it turned out was like so much more magical than I could have even imagined.
Could I put a spin on that?
Yeah, go nuts.
So I would say this. I would say that you had, like you said, you had an intention and then you were disappointed. And then you kept showing up to life and you helped turn that into an even better outcome through also. So yes, there was other opportunities, but I would say that there are also plenty of things that happened that you wanted to happen as well, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can tell how much you absolutely love your wife. And I would say that was something you wanted to happen and hey, it happened, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's just this, so I would say that, but exactly that. You were like, oh, I'm afraid to get my hopes up. I'm afraid to be wrong. I'm afraid to be disappointed. But that gets linked up. But that's my point. And then that shows up, and maybe that shows up as low back pain. And then maybe somebody's sitting there with low back pain and they can't get rid of it because they have that sitting at their core.
That would be me.
Bingo.
It's funny, in preparation for our conversation, I mean, I knew enough about your origin story and the work you do and what you'd been through and things like that. But as I was preparing for this conversation, I thought, man, it's crazy because I've had like lower back pain on the right side for, I think it's been probably 30 years or so. And, I have a lot of great relationships, resources. I mean, I interview people all the time that are incredible healers and inventors of different technologies. And I've done everything from, hyperbaric chambers, lasers, red lights, stem cell. I mean, just like if there's anything you could try for lower back pain that is in existence on planet Earth, I've probably done it. And I mean, I would say it's improved a little bit over the years, but I can't honestly say like, oh, I remember that back in the day, my back used to hurt. No, it's going to happen a few days a week. That's kind of the experience. What triggers it? I don't know. I don't really know what makes it better. Some days I don't notice it. Some days it's like really hard to work, you know? So
You want to know?
yeah. What
Do you?
What do you got for that? Yeah.
Okay.
I remember, well, here's one thing I want to add. Back in the day, early in my journey, this is probably 20 years ago, when I was like, I think there's something like, because it's not a physical thing, right? I mean, I can get x-rays and MRIs and they're like, I don't know, it looks fine to me. There's nothing like physically wrong other than a little minor arthritis in the right hip joint. So I got Dr. John Sarno's book. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but similar kind of lane that, it's about subconscious beliefs and your emotions, and especially with back pain. And people still to this day, I see it on social media. Have you guys heard of this? I'm like, been there, done that, tried this whole thing, didn't see a result. But that didn't mean I discount that there's some unknown subconscious emotions, thoughts, whatever it is. But I'm kind of a good case study for that thing, that I'm really healthy. I have a great life. I would say I'm positive. I've healed all kinds of trauma. I mean, I've done a lot of healing work for a very long time. And it's like, what the hell? Why is this still going on? It's just, it's like, it's so bizarre to me that I haven't been able to sort it out, considering all the work I've put into just being healthy on all levels for so long.
Mm-hmm. You want to explore?
Yeah, let's go for it. Seems like everyone's into liver cleanses right now. Juice fast, coffee enemas, all these different protocols and resets. It's a huge industry. And look, that's super important, and periodically many of those cleanses can be useful. But the truth is, your liver's job isn't seasonal. It works every damned day. It's how we survive environmental toxins, stress, and late nights. And even so-called clean food isn't what it used to be. I mean, I barely even trust organic food anymore. And God forbid you're drinking alcohol or taking pharmaceuticals. Well, all of that has to get processed and shuttled out of your body via the liver. So the daily liver support matters more than the occasional cleanse. That's why TUDCA from Level Up has earned its rightful place in my daily stack. TUDCA is a taurine-conjugated bile acid that supports liver health and bile flow, helping the system function the way it's meant to. I think of it as a daily maintenance for my liver, cleaning house on a cellular level. But what I like most about TUDCA is that it's supportive, not aggressive, so there's no detox drama or Herx reactions. Just cleaner digestion, less heaviness, and a lighter, clearer feeling overall. To get your liver on point, go to lukestory.com/levelup and use the code Luke15 to save 15%. Because the fact is, in today's toxic world, your liver is running damage control 24/7. So do a deep cleanse occasionally, but make sure you love your liver daily with TUDCA from Level Up Health. Again, that link is lukestory.com/LVLUP. The code is Luke15.
Okay, so I have to tell you one thing. I don't know how much. Okay, so do you know that after I healed myself, I also got this ability to feel what other people feel?
No.
Oh, that happened, by the way.
Okay.
So part of the reason, so probably should unpack this for a moment, because if not, it's going to seem weird, really fast.
We talk about a lot of really weird stuff here, so the audience is going to be warm to really far out information. So,
all right,
it's a good place to start.
Okay, so after I healed myself, and I just wanted to like show other people how to do it and how to heal themselves, I started realizing that I could feel what other people feel. And so, or you could call it channeling information, you could call it intuition on steroids. If you wanted a grounded way to say it, you could call it something like mirror touch synesthesia. So technically, there's a phenomenon called mirror touch synesthesia, when one person can feel what another person's feeling. So whatever you want to call it.
On a physical level, you're talking.
Yeah, except for...
What differentiates what you're describing from just being an empath, of being able to sense someone's kind of energy?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like an empath. Yeah, it's more focused, and I can channel information and stuff. I would say that the network engineering operation side in me keeps it very grounded, but it like so I can ask universe information, I can ask your body for information, I can feel what you're feeling, etc. So
Cool.
So that's where we're going. Are you good with that?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. Okay. So by the way, if I ask you if you're experiencing back pain right now, what would you say?
A little bit.
And what's your level?
3.
That's what I would said, about a 3, 3, 4, right in there. 3.3, right in there. Okay. And if I ask you where you're feeling it the most, where would you say that is?
Right side sacrum.
Okay. And give me 1 second. Bingo. 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 Yes. Okay. So there's a feeling of feeling, bingo. It's like there's a blend of feelings, but it's like a feeling of feeling angry at, we could call it, I'm looking for a word beyond politics, but it's like angry about the way that people do things in the world. Angry.
Nailed it. Say no more. You got me.
Okay, but what's interesting also is the pattern actually starts at age 6. So there's a young,
Well, I just got chills. Damn, girl.
Bingo.
Yeah.
So give me 1 second. Do you know what it is?
I know what happened at 6.
Go ahead.
I was abused when I was 6.
Bingo. Okay. So, bingo. And it's like the injustice. So the way that you take it in is like, it feels like being taken advantage of.
Yes.
Bingo. And so that's what it triggers in you, is that. And so, the reason that you're also getting angry at the world and the this and the that is it's like that feeling of, it's triggering that abuse trigger. So that's the feeling. Does that make sense?
100%.
Okay. So bingo. So I would ask you, okay, so what would happen if you weren't looking at it through a different lens? Okay. So we talked about lens kind of earlier, but so what would happen? Bingo. So it's kind of like this. This is one lens that I have, is that, do I feel like there's a lot of chaos in the world right now? Yes, but I'm not angry at it. I'm waiting for the other side of it. And this is what I mean, is that my accident was the absolute worst part of my, like, literally, I felt like somebody took away my entire life. And from that, if something so horrible, when I really showed up and worked on myself and figured it out, it's like if somebody told me that the very thing that I thought took away my entire life would actually end up giving me more life than I ever realized was possible. It was pivotal, and like, I actually call my method the gift method. And the reason why is because I feel like when we look at patterns and the way things show up in life, when we change our patterns, we change our life. And if we give it an example, if we say, unfortunately, the woman with the abusive father who leaves him and finds the abusive boyfriend, boss, spouse, et cetera, if she changed that pattern, she can also change that trajectory.
Yep.
And so what I would say is, when we have illness or pain or problems, any illness or pain is our body giving us a message. It's like a spiritual message, or like a spiritual check engine light on a car. It's like if a check engine light on a car is on, it's telling you like, hey, something's wrong with the car. And if we have an illness, it's like, hey, something's wrong with your patterns. Something is off with your way of thinking. The pattern is off. And if you can change that pattern, you can change your trajectory, right? And so it's like, so I call it the gift method, is it's understanding what's the check engine light that's going on, and how do we check in and really change that, right? And so my point is that what would happen, it's kind of like this, is that I think that, imagine this chaos that's going on right now. I think so much people have depended and had a codependent feeling on the government.
Totally. That's a great way to put it.
Right? And so we're waiting for this person to save this.
Yeah.
Exactly. So what happens with
I think the system is designed like that intentionally to disempower people from actually taking responsibility for their own life.
I agree, but this is the thing. We grew up like that. We're born like that. And then that's like even with me with the medical community. And I'm grateful for my doctors. I have nothing but gratitude and just appreciation for what they did. But it also made me do what? Come back to self and say, how do I heal me?
Mm-hmm.
So it became an empowerment. And I think what's going on has created a large level of distrust in a lot of the systems that I'm waiting for people to wake up and say, okay, we're the answer.
Yeah.
We are. And so it's not great right now, what's happening, but I'm excited for the other side of that, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm not mad at it. I'm like, you know what? If out of all of this, people realize that we can create our lives, that we need to speak it, that we can't, like, hey, we don't have to put up with all these wars. And like, I think the emerging of people and empowerment is the answer. So I'm not mad at it. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I think that it's
So-
like looking at things from a zoomed out perspective and looking at things in a cyclical, like very broad time span helps me with that, right? Because if I look at what's immediate today, it's like, oh, more wars, more satanic pedophiles running the country. You know, I mean, it's just like, oh my God. But I also, have the humility to know I can't see what's going to happen in 300 years from now when we look back on this and it's like the dark ages, right? And it's like, this was the catalyst that awakened humanity to get out of that savior complex and this dependency on the state, right?
But that's
that we
what's
might see
exciting.
through statism because it's failing so badly and so obviously now.
But hold on,
Okay.
because we don't want to. But so the thing, like the level of empowerment that I got to heal myself versus the codependency of powerlessness that I experienced during my injury, there was a lot of powerlessness, and so that feeling of powerlessness. What happens if?
Carry on. I warned you.
You did warn me. You're so great. I adore you.
I said, if I start doing really weird shit over here when you're talking, just ignore me and keep going. Sometimes it's so funny that
You didn't
can't keep
warn
going.
me it was going to be green shit. It's good. It's so good.
Carry on. You're on a really good thread here. Don't let me just.
I like it. So here we go. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the thing, right? So I went from powerlessness to being really upset and angry that my doctors weren't fixing me and why didn't they have the answer and why and upset to going, wait a second. Let me actually, like if I take back my own power and I decide that, okay, let me shift my life, right? So it became this huge shift of healing myself that I have a feeling of security in life that exists in a whole different way because I was able to heal myself. Like I don't have pain. I haven't had pain in 16 years. It's just pivotal. And so, and seeing how much our patterns really do end up manifesting in ways that people don't even see. And it's not just like the woo-woo manifestation. Don't get me wrong. I like the woo. I love the woo. But there's also like when you start to see it, it's like you can't unsee it at the level at which everything is really playing out and just in a beautiful way. So my point is ready? So going back to the pain.
Yeah.
Okay. So if I ask you, what if you weren't mad at it? What if you weren't mad at it at all? Because what if you know that part of what you're even doing now is the solution of the empowerment of being in that place, and instead of being mad at it or angry at it at all, just really getting rid of that anger completely. What would that look like? Now, I'm going to kind of mess with your mind for a second.
Totally.
Go ahead.
I'm
Okay.
here for it. Go ahead.
Great. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to breathe. And so what if empowerment is the result? So what if you weren't angry? So even with my doctors, like I have absolute appreciation and no upset at all. None. Zero. And if they had the answers, then they would have given it to me so that they didn't have the answers. And that's okay. the fact that universe, God, divine energy, mother nature, whatever you want to call it, made our bodies so incredible that they can heal themselves is mind-blowing. And the things that I get to see all of the time, mind-blowing. And so if I ask you to breathe, and so what if that anger, what if it was actually completely gone? Like, what if you actually didn't need it at all? What if you knew and just had the excitement for what was happening on the other side of that, the empowerment, the waking up, the appreciation that you're part of this incredible movement, that what you're doing and the way you're showing up, that it is part of the change that needs to happen. And you just had zero anger, zero victim, just all solution, 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 zero anger, zero victim, zero injustice, but instead just realizing we're getting rid of an old paradigm. Go ahead.
Well, it's funny because I think
Can I say something really fast?
Please.
Can I ask you your level of pain right now?
Like a 1.
Bingo. Okay. So just so you know, I know that's the reason I interrupted, is because if you said anything to bring it back, then I would have asked and it would have been back up. So that's basically, very simply, in a nutshell, what I do with people is identify the specific thing that's affecting them and help them to begin shifting it, to demonstrate it. Now, when I said, even with the medical studies, when I show it under medical equipment, I always tell people, you have to really embrace a real change. But that's the shift, just so you know. So go ahead. But
so cool. Well, to answer your question, what would I be like, or what would it feel like to release that anger? And it's interesting because I go through phases of the way I perceive this reality and the matrix that we live in, right? It's like sometimes it's very easy for me to access the big meta picture, that I have the sense that I volunteered to enter into this physical form in this dualistic world where you have divinity and joy and love, and you also have the absence of love, which is how I would define evil, right? So it's like my soul knows that I chose to play this game, and I know the terms of the game, and I know that there are players on both sides of the game. Okay?
mm-hmm.
So there's, on a deep level, there's kind of an acceptance that it's a game. And when I'm there, I feel empowered because I'm not angry at the dark side. I'm not fighting against it. I'm just going toward more light, if that makes sense, right?
Yep.
And that, that's more on a worldview, broad perspective. But then I get a letter in the mail from a government agency, or I live in a speed trap down the road. There's these, Tar River bandits that are trying to extort money from me. It's like, when I interface with the players in the matrix on a day-to-day level, that's when I get pissed and I forget that this is all just a game, and the game is to learn how to transmute this experience into something positive, because that's why I came here, right?
Yes.
So there's a bit of like fluctuation in my level of what you might say anger or resistance to the system and just how the world operates.
Okay, can I add a layer onto that?
Yeah. Well, here's another trigger for me. Okay. I wake up, I go, oh, cool. It's not cloudy today. It's a nice sunny Texas spring day. Spring here is beautiful. I walk in the backyard to get some sun, and there's like chemtrails going crazy across the sky. That pisses me off. And when I'm pissed at that, it's harder for me to access that higher level of understanding that you chose to join the matrix. This is the game. So just why don't you focus on the beautiful sun and the beautiful blue sky in between the chemtrails? You know what I mean?
Okay.
Right? So it's like, and one more thing, and then I'll shut up. Because I'm a person who's very invested in truth with a capital T, I really want to understand the nature of this reality. So I do a lot of research and learn a lot of things about what's going on. So I can't like sweep things under the rug or pretend like it's not there, because, I've been aware of these kind of conspiracies and stuff since 9/11, actually, right? So it's like, I kind of missed the days when ignorance was bliss. And I just thought, oh no, it's the government's, they're on our side. They're here to protect us. It's like, they're spraying us like roaches. I just want to go outside and enjoy the sun, So it's like, I'm pretty positive, not really angry, but I do get triggered when I interface with that system.
Bingo.
And I get fucking pissed. Mm-hmm. And I want to fight.
Okay, but just food for thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I'm totally open. Please,
I hear you. Okay.
So if I ask my entire worldview and start over. I'm very eager to change. Always, to evolve.
Let's see. Okay, so a couple things. Okay, so what's your level of pain right now?
A 1 or 2.
Okay, so bingo. So that is about a 2.4 right in there. Bingo. Okay, so a couple things. You ready?
Yeah, lay it on me.
Okay.
And you don't have to hold back. Like
all right.
I can take maximum truth.
Okay, you sure?
And I'm happy for people listening and watching to hear it. Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
I mean, my goal with this show is to demonstrate what's possible. So I don't have any defenses or any kind of image I'm trying to uphold. I'm just very transparent and real because I want to give people the permission in their life to do it for themselves.
Fantastic. I love it. I love it. All right. So being real. Here we go. So a couple things. So remember when you had said previously, you said that if people are sick, you don't believe that you're going to get sick. So you're not all triggered by it, right? Mm-hmm. So if I see chemtrails, I don't believe they're going to impact me. I'm not all triggered by it.
Really?
No.
That's amazing.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
No.
Amazing.
I'm like, you know what? That's because this is the thing, is you see even areas, it's kind of like this. You see areas that there have been massive amounts of toxins, right? Have you ever seen an area where there's been a massive amount of toxins where every single person got sick?
I don't think so.
No. They'll say, oh, there's a higher rate of cancer over here because of these or that, EMFs or this or that or whatever, blah, 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 right? Now I got to tell you, during my injury, I became so paranoid about EMFs and illness and chemicals and this and that, so much so that I was going crazy with honestly, and I've seen people freak out and and that was me. Like if there was a chemical, if there was a this, if there was a that, get it away from me. Like I went through that period. Yeah. And I was so OCD.
I've been in that period for about 30 years. Totally.
Yeah. I lived it. Now I'm like, oh.
I mean, it fluctuates sometimes better than others, but yeah, I have noticed something when I'm driving through a city. I feel my body tense up when I see 5G towers, but I notice it and I'm like, you're safe, relax. And I have to talk myself out of either being pissed or being afraid.
Exactly. But I'm like, okay, well, I know I'm going to maintain healthy. So what's the difference between going to a group of people where, illness, where everybody thinks, somebody has a cold and so they think it's just going to be contagious. See, I don't buy into that either. Right? So, but that's what I would say. Remember when I said, I think it's a lot also has to do with the emotion. So what you're saying at the time is you say, okay, you go to the town or go through a bunch of towers and you get a bunch of fear. So what does that do for your body? What does that do for your nervous system? What does that do for your immune system? Right? So technically speaking, kindly said, that probably is going the wrong direction that you would want it to go. So if I go and I'm like, not affected.
Right. So it's like
my nervous system's like, okay, I'm still listening to the Rolling Stones.
Totally. No, I've played with these ideas so much and realized that, okay, there's a quantifiable negative physical impact if you're within a certain distance from, say, a cell tower, right? Mm-hmm. I've wondered if that is more just being there, if you knew nothing about it, right? If you were like, oh, that thing's pretty, right? When they make them like a tree, I wonder what harms you more, being in that radiation or the fear response and the cortisol that I'm describing.
Fear, totally.
Right? So 100%. It's like, now you're getting radiated, but you're also radiating your own cells with fear and anger chemicals. It's like you're getting hit double now versus the person who's just standing there under the cell tower and is totally oblivious that they do anything to you.
Right? They don't do anything to me. So there's that. I mean, this is the thing, is even the things that are like, oh, this is known to cause this problem and that problem, whatever, like not 100% of every single person has ever ended up with it. For example, there's somebody that I know who's, and I'm not promoting smoking, of course, but literally has smoked like her entire life. She's a friend's grandmother who's like 100 years old, 90 something, and she's walking around like New York and this, that, the other. She's in her 90s. She smokes like a chimney and got no health issues and is walking around better than most 90-year-olds.
Respect.
Yeah, and I'm not promoting cigarettes. I wouldn't tell anybody to do it. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
You know, my grandfather smoked and he drank all of the time, and he had a lot of trauma from World War II, and I would say that's how he dealt with it. And he outlived my grandmother, who was like the stress case, and he's just always telling jokes. And not saying go get a pack of cigarettes and a vodka. I'm not saying that at all, but I'm just saying I think stress is a much bigger killer than people realize. Absolutely. And so, so a few things. Okay, so if we were going to just kind of bring this, I would say this. I would say that you have a strong feeling of feeling like you, okay, so a couple things. So, bingo. So complete honesty, okay, so a couple of things. So number one, not being triggered by them, okay? I would also say that there's a part of you that, so remember we were talking about the miswired mind, that things can get linked up in the mind that don't make logical sense necessarily. Now, have you ever heard of somebody, and I'm not saying this is you, to be clear, I'm giving an example, but have you ever seen somebody who has a pride in hardship, where they go through one hardship after another, and there's like a pride connected to it?
Yeah.
Okay.
But my wife and I call that being on the struggle bus.
Okay, right. They have like, where it's even like this, where somebody says, oh, somebody says, oh, I had a bad day, yada, yada, yada. And then somebody else says, oh, your day was bad? Let me tell you about my day. Like they're winning at having the worst day. And so the mind links that up, that says, oh, well, next time I meet this person, I'm going to have an even worse day, right? And so that's a lot of times why, like, I don't dive into all of the negativity regarding I'm like, oh, it's a train wreck. You know, it's because I don't want to win at the worst situation or the worst life. It's not a game to win. But my point is,
the victim Olympics.
Yeah, but the mind gets it linked up. That how do you win the worst day or the worst childhood or the worst life? So my point is, there's a part of you who feels like a good person for getting upset about it. Like, you should be upset about this and standing up for what's right. And so there's this anger and this upset because you feel like you should be, right? Can you see that?
Yeah.
So the problem is, so if I said, I'm a good person because I'm angry about these things, how easy is it for me to let them go if I feel like I'm a good person for being angry about them? Just like in my life, I felt like I was supposed to die for others. And so I had it linked up, survivor's guilt, and that it was good for me to feel guilty. It was the right thing to do, which was not the case, but that's what was linked up. And that's why I said there's always something miswired at a deeper level. And so instead of being angry or triggered by it, because there's a part of you that is wanting to like save the planet and do all these great things. So it's like this righteous do-gooder energy that says, I'm supposed to be angry. And it's like, but what would happen if you just kept doing all of your good stuff, your amazing, wonderful, fantastic stuff that you're doing, but you were able to let go of the anger and the triggered fear as well? What would that look like?
I would like that. I had an interesting real life experience of that when the pandemic first unfolded. It didn't take me long to realize that something was amiss, to say the least. So I was like glued to social media, and I just felt very threatened by what was going on, right? And then I went to a retreat, and I didn't have my phone for like a week. And so I was totally unaware of what was happening in the world. And I realized that if I wasn't plugged into the internet, that my life had not changed at all. Like objectively, my life was exactly the same. I was thriving. I was safe. I was happy until I looked at what was going on in the world. Right. And I thought, wow, you could be someone living in the middle of the mountains with no internet and no phone. You wouldn't even know COVID was happening. You'd just be living your day-to-day life. But because I chose to engage and track what's going on and try to, protect myself or warn other people that this is a scam and so on, I could see how directly my attention was linked to my sense of well-being. I was like, that's interesting. And then I just went right back into tracking it. But I did get a little glimpse of like, oh, wow, this is interesting. Nothing has actually changed in my life at all, except perception.
Okay. So bingo. So in the bingo. Give me 1 second. So an invitation is that bingo. Okay. So okay. So, bingo. So this is my transparency is this. So part of me, I love results. Like I love results with healing and all of that. And so what I would invite you to the awareness is that, like if I ask you to notice your level of pain, what's your level of pain?
Right now? Mm-hmm. Like 3, 4.
Bingo. So notice, remember when I said, if I didn't interrupt you, it would go back up, right? And of course you can do and be however you want to be. And I don't want to change anybody so my point is, I'm just going to invite you to a different way of thinking real quick. Okay. So, just kind of re-bring it in for a second. So if I ask you to breathe, bingo. And so thinking about the awareness of empowerment. So if you're thinking about the way that everybody keeps waking up and so instead of this codependent relationship that we have with the government and very disempowered, is that the people become even more of, each person has a sense of empowerment in their own life to create their life to, instead of feeling, because so often people feel this huge, I hope the government does jobs and then this and then that, but there's instead this individualized feeling in every person where they feel a sense with universe and empowerment. What would that look like? And so what if there was no anger and there was no upset, but you knew that was occurring? And if you knew that was occurring, could you not be upset by what's happening, but instead be encouraging as you are, beautifully, of the empowerment of each individual and feel that? What would that feel like if you didn't have any anger? What would that feel like? And you didn't feel like a victim, but you felt like this feeling of not taken advantage of it all either, but instead the wisdom of knowing what's coming. So you weren't feeling taken advantage of. You were actually feeling like, I know where this is going and I'm happy where this is headed. And I'm not angry I'm not upset that the doctors couldn't heal me. Instead, I figured out a thing that changed my life, right? And so if you knew that that was true for everybody, that as people are waking up to healing, but empowerment to what's going on in the world and all of that, could you not be angry at it, but instead just feel the feeling of outsmarting, if you will, the bigger picture, the universe outsmarting the whole unfoldment?
Totally.
Great. So if I ask you to breathe, and if you were to let go of any anger, any upset, or any trigger towards it all, just like you wisely mentioned towards illness, or with somebody having a cold and whatnot, you don't believe that you're necessarily going to catch it from somebody else or whatnot. But so if you didn't feel like all of this stuff was necessarily going to impact your life, and you knew that you were ultimately safe, if you knew that, Bingo. What would that feel like?
Peaceful, serene,
Bingo.
joy.
Great. So, bingo. Great. So I'm going to ask you to breathe. And if I ask you to notice your level of pain, what's your level of pain?
Probably 3.
Bingo. That. Bingo. So notice for a moment. Bingo. Okay, so this is the thing. Can you see how, as you've talked about those things, you've kind of got your emotions really revved up about them? Can you feel that? Yeah. Right. So normally I'm going to tell you straight up all of the time, typically when I work with people to do this, I interrupt like 50 times because I know, and I'm like, but I got to kindly interrupt because I know that they're going to push against the very trigger. Mm-hmm. So you tell me, I would need to push you a little bit. Are you open for that or?
Yeah.
All right. 100%. All right. So here we go. So I'm going to be a little pushy, right?
100%.
Okay. So here we go. Okay. So here we go. A little pushy. So you could go ahead and hold on to anger if you want. I mean, I wouldn't recommend that. I wouldn't want to do that for my life, but you could hold on to that anger and upset and feeling, or you could hold on to the wisdom that you have inside of you and actually let that anger go. It's up to you. So I'm going to ask you to breathe. I'm going to push again, and I'm going to say, sure, you could hold on to that anger if you want. I mean, I wouldn't want to do that to my body. I would actually want to let it go and instead step into the wisdom that you have, the wisdom, and be there. And instead, make this a fun chess game where you win, and winning means empowerment. And so instead of the anger and the upset and the powerlessness and the frustration or the fear, the wisdom, the strategy, the chess game, the success, the not feeling victim to the cops that are doing this and that and da-da-da-da-da, or the this and the that and the da-da-da-da-da. Like, but instead, changing that pattern so you're not seeing it everywhere and not experiencing it. So if you think about it, it's kind of like this. The woman with the abusive father who leaves him and finds the abusive boyfriend, boss, spouse, et cetera, that pattern continues, right? Now, do you think she does that on purpose?
No.
No. It's not like she meets somebody and says, hey, I have to make sure you're going to abuse me or this isn't going to work, right? The pattern manifests and shows up, right? Mm-hmm. So can you see that even as you change this, that it could be good for your patterns and good for your life also in creating less of those problems that come up? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Great. And so I'm going to ask you to breathe. Bingo. Now, again, you don't have to change it. You could get yourself amped up. You could get upset about it. You could feel angry about it. You could totally do that, and nobody would blame you. But by the way, during my injury, I could have totally stayed in the fear. Nobody would have blamed me, but I could have. But I really wanted to heal, so I changed. So you could stay in the anger and nobody would bat an eye, but you could also let it go and you could shift that. Bingo. Bingo. Okay, and so if I ask you to notice your level of pain, what's your level?
2.
Bingo. That's what I say. I got right under a 2. I got about a 1.8 right in there. Fantastic. Great. You're doing that, keeping in mind you're the one that's doing this. Okay, so what I would say to you is your body is giving you a message and you're following that. So I'm going to ask you to breathe. And so just taking that in, you're doing that. You're doing that. And so I'm going to ask you to breathe. And if I were you, I would say, okay, let me go ahead and continue to get rid of this feeling of feeling amped up about it. And instead, stepping into the wisdom, the brilliance, the wisdom, the brilliance. Not amped up about it at all. Instead, changing, transformation, real change, right? So I'm going to ask you to breathe. So if I ask you 0 to 10, how much you want to feel amped up about it, what would you say?
How much I want to feel amped up about it? Mm-hmm. I don't want it at all, actually.
Okay. So So if I ask you how much 0 to 10 you want to feel the wisdom and the win in it instead?
10.
10. Great. So would you be willing to let go of the amped up, upset, injustice feeling completely and trade it in for the wisdom win energy?
It's funny when you ask me that, my conscious mind is like, of course, I just want to feel good, right? I can sense there's this part of me that's like, fuck that. You know what I mean? It's like,
I love you. I love your truth.
It's like a 2%. It's like, yeah, I can't let it go completely because they're wrong,
Uh-huh.
But yes.
Bingo.
Yes, I'm willing, but I do sense that subtle resistance,
Yes. Now, by the way, so that resistance in exactly that. So watch this. So when I said that there are certain emotional needs, that's key. And one of them has to do with deserving. So which shows up like this. Have you ever heard somebody say, I have a right to be angry?
Yeah.
Exactly. Which what they're doing is ingraining the problem over and over and over again. So I say I have a right to be happy. I don't want to have a right to be angry. Because by the way, patterns breed more of the same. So if I say, I have a right to be angry, I have a right to be angry, that's like saying, I want to attract more angry circumstances into my life.
Right.
Awesome.
Right.
Right? So even if they're wrong, yes, they're wrong. We can see that. But if something's wrong about something, does that give me a right or a desire to want to be angry and to do that to my own health and my own life and my own energy and my own body? That's a different thing. So I can observe and I can understand. And instead of being angry, I just would rather be part of the solution of creating what's right. Because,
Yeah.
It's kind of like this is even with health, some people want to like smash the medical system. Like, but people don't know how to heal themselves. They want to like, and it's like, we need to, like, in other words, right now, as far as the government goes, I mean, let's be honest. Part of the problem though, is so many people lack empowerment. And so they've got to find that feeling of empowerment and live from that place. So instead of getting angry at the problem, the solution doesn't yet exist at the level that it needs to. So then it's being part of the solution and creating that at that level instead of being angry at the problem, because so many people are angry at the problem or victimized by the problem, right? And victim is just more powerlessness, right?
Totally.
And so, bingo. Great. So I'm going to ask you to breathe. And I'm going to push a little bit more, okay? Mm-hmm. So I'm just going to say, you could go ahead and be angry. If you could hold on to that 2% that still wants to be, you could totally do that. It's your choice. Or you could let it go. Or you could hold on to it. Or you could let it go. It's up to you. You're the power here. You're the power. You decide how you want to feel. I know for me, it was change. It was transformation. I really, really wanted to heal. I really wanted to change. And that meant real change at a deeper level. And so I'm going to ask you to breathe. And you could be upset and angry about it. Or you could focus so much on the win and the wisdom and the success and changing the pattern that the pattern doesn't exist. And you're changing that. So bingo. So I'm going to ask you to breathe. Bingo. Okay. And if I ask you to notice your level of pain, 0 to 10, what's your level?
2.
Okay. And bingo. Give me 1 second. Bingo. If you ask me to feel into the feeling, and you can probably find this. That's why. Okay. So notice how COVID got you amped up in a whole nother way. You can see that, right? So when I look at a lot of the things that you did let go of, I can feel the overall, but I would say the whole pandemic wording and that's a whole nother amplified triggered topic. You can feel that, right? So bingo. So give me 1 second. So give me 1 second. Okay. Bingo. So this is the thing. Is notice you have a lot of connection regarding feeling this way. Can you see that? So it's kind of like this. This is the way I would say it. It's kind of like, okay, So if you stopped being upset about it, if I ask you how that would feel in your social circles and your connectedness, if you really stopped being upset about it, how would that feel to you? Mixed or good?
No, I would say good.
Good?
Yeah.
100%?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you weren't amped up about it at all anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I had that I had that
I hear you.
experience of being unplugged from it, and I was happy as hell.
There we go. Okay.
You know, so
but it's not about COVID itself. It's about the politics around it.
Yeah.
That I would say is a lot of the upset. So give me 1 second. Okay, so if I ask you to check in, and if I ask you 0 to 10, how much you can find the feeling of feeling amped up about it, 0 to 10, what level would you give it?
Right in this moment?
Mm-hmm.
Well, like a 4.
That's exactly what I would have said. Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's that. Bingo. Okay, and if I ask you the troopers' energy, 0 to 10, how much you can find the feeling, the police, 0 to 10, if I ask you how much you can find amped about that.
The pirates. Yeah, I'm at a solid 6.
That's exactly what I would have said. So when the COVID gave me the level 4, bingo. But you just went. So this is what happens. But this is what's brilliant. Is this, right? And that's what one of the keys is this. All of the time, I'll see people who have been on the healing journey for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, and they go back to childhood trauma, and they don't realize it's being triggered all around them. And this is what I mean, is imagine if somebody has a pattern of embarrassment. And so they embarrassed by this, and embarrassed by this, and embarrassed by this, and what happens is they're constantly being triggered. Their face is always being red, so to speak. Or if somebody's always triggered by fear, there's this happening, there's this tower happening, there's this, there's that. So they're always being triggered by that, right? That's exactly the thing, is that all of the time, it's like the trigger is being, it's a repeated way of thinking. So in other words, to say it another way, one person can go through life and they can feel embarrassed all the time and their face can turn red. And somebody else can feel fearful in life, and somebody else can feel angry, and somebody else can feel like a victim, and somebody else can feel confident, and somebody else can feel rage, and somebody else can, so my point is that there were a lot of things that I did different to heal myself. Going back to childhood, I just say, hey, here's where the pattern started. And yes, it needs to be solved. But one of the things that I do different with people is exactly that, is the now, because the now is triggering what's happening. And that's the key. And so notice all of these triggered ways of thinking. And that's why you have what? Good days and bad days, ups and downs. Because one of these triggers comes in, and then, like you said, it's 3 or 4 days a week, you have that back pain. And so ultimately, that's the change that needs to take place. Now, this is what's tricky for me, is that whenever you go to speak, I'm not interrupting like I normally would. Okay, so we're kind of playing tug of war a bit, where what I'm saying is trying to bring it down, and then you go, but then there's the pandemic or this or this or this, which is then bringing you back up.
Okay.
And then, and so normally what I do is I actually have hundreds of live demonstrations where I've taken people and I take them out of pain, and literally, I say they do it. I just show them how to do it, but I interrupt a lot, because anytime you would go to say anything that would amplify it, I would technically interrupt any of those neural pathways to actually not have you amplify it. So it's kind of like if you said to somebody, hey, don't be embarrassed. And then they said, I was really, really, really embarrassed about this. And you're like, okay, but we want to bring that down. And then they go, well, I was really embarrassed about this and this and this. And you're like, okay, but we want to bring it down. And then they were like, well, I was really embarrassed. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's pattern interruption, right? And so you're seeing the pattern manifest, and you're literally interrupting the pattern.
Exactly.
Okay.
But because we're on an interview, I don't want to interrupt you as much as I don't want to be like, look, Luke, I know this is your show. I'm going to interrupt you. You can't say.
you can
Okay.
go nuts.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. I've had a lot of big breakthrough moments in my life, ceremony, deep personal work, and just major life transitions. It's those moments where something just clicks and you see life through a new lens. But I'll be honest, the hard part isn't the insight. It's what happens after the insight. It's taking that clarity and living it, changing your habits, showing up differently, staying grounded when life gets real. That's been a huge edge for me. And the one tool I've used for years to support that process is the line of flower essences from Lotus Way. And these aren't essential oils, family. They're solar infusions that carry the energetic imprint of specific flowers. Sounds out there, I get it. But I've truly felt the difference. Otherwise, I wouldn't share it with you. When I'm in a season of change, whether it's stress, growth, or just feeling off, I use their elixirs and sprays to help regulate my system and integrate what I'm learning. To keep it simple, Lotus Way helps me feel more chill and less reactive, like I can embody the vision of myself I'm becoming. Highly recommend you check it out, and here's how you do so. Visit lotusway.com/Luke. That's LOTUSWEI, lotusway.com/Luke. And when you get there, you can take their master flower quiz to find your match and use the code Luke to save 10% off your first order. That's lotusway.com/Luke. Because here's what's up. Anyone can have a flash of insight. But if you want to stay aligned when life tempts you back into old patterns, this is your ally. That's lotusway.com/Luke. I want to ask you something, and I don't think I'm going to bring a pattern, but, you know, as you said, right, it's like, say you had childhood trauma, that's maybe set a pattern in motion, but it's how the pattern is playing out right now in real time. When I look up at the chemtrails and I get pissed off, you know, maybe there's a connection to what happened when I was a kid, but it's not really that specifically that is affecting me right now. Am I getting that right?
I would say this. I would say that experience you had created a pattern of distrust, a big pattern of distrust. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So if I ask you, even in your 20s, if I ask you how much you can see that you had a pattern of distrust with other people, what would you say?
I don't know that I had a lot of that.
Okay.
I think it's like...
Okay, so I'm going to interrupt, if that's okay.
Please.
Okay, so I would say in your 20s on average...
Tell me, just do it.
Fantastic. Okay, so I would say in your 20s, I would say at about a level 6. Okay? Bingo. Bingo. If I ask you how much you trusted women in your 20s, what would you say?
Very little.
Bingo. Okay. That's where that pattern showed up, is with women in your 20s. Okay. So that's why I see the trigger there. So it just shows up in different ways.
Got it.
Same pattern.
Got it.
Okay. Now, if I ask you how much in your 20s it was related to the government, what would you say?
None at all.
Bingo. But it's the same pattern.
I was oblivious.
Exactly. But at that time, it was women.
Mm-hmm. How'd you know that?
Bingo.
Yeah, you got the bingo.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the thing. So ultimately, what I did, the way that I worked with my mind, then opened it up to start getting information in. So that was a whole fun thing.
How about this connection and thinking about the patterning coming from childhood abuse? One thing that I can see that's related to this kind of resentment that I have toward this parasitic system is like an infringement on my freedom and sovereignty. It's like a violation of my rights or boundaries. And that abuser was a microcosm of the macrocosm of how I see this whole system, leaving aside the fact that so many of the quote unquote leaders in the system are also pedophiles. But it's like I get my freedom feels very threatened. Like I do not like my sovereignty being interfered with. And it seems like there's a relationship of that pattern where it was like done on an interpersonal level, but it's the same feeling I get with the imposition of the matrix. Does that track at all to you?
So if I were to say this in a different way, I would say that, so there's so many different directions we could go with this, but this is what I would say. If I were just going to keep it connected to what happened, I would say that, bingo. There's the person from age 6, there's still a lot of bingo, like resentment and anger towards that person. And what I would say is this. I would say that like if I feel into your 20s, there's a feeling of distrust, but also a feeling of powerless with the distrust. And I would say that you've learned to, in other words, I would say that your reaction to it is different, and that's what's changed, but the pattern still exists. And so a simple way to think about it is like this, is if I were to say that the woman with the abusive father leaves him and finds the abusive boyfriend boss, and there's a point where she's feeling like she's attracting all this stuff and she feels like the victim. And then after a while she says, I'm going to get boxing gloves. That's it. Right. And I'm going to get better at ducking and hiding and fighting back against this pattern. Right. And so what I would say is for healing to happen, it's got to actually change the patterned feeling itself. And that's the key, because patterns also attract more and more of the same. And that's what I would say. So on the soul's level, I would say that you do believe in past lives, or you don't believe in past lives?
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I would say this pattern of distrust, I would say you've had it for you're an old soul. Of course, we could have guessed that. Bingo, like 36 lifetimes, a lot of lifetimes, you have had this pattern of distrust. And so what I would say is the anger towards it feels like the upset righteousness, you're wrong, survivor, thrive. It's the fighting back energy, but the distrust still exists, right? So, but it's kind of like this. Okay, so do you expect that a 3-year-old can drive a car?
No.
No, so you don't trust them?
Not to drive a car.
So how much distrust do you have from that?
100%.
So see, the thing of it is totally. So even experiencing it as distrust, that's a certain feeling that's evoked, right? So for a 3-year-old to not be able to drive a car, do I feel distrust? I don't. I feel like it's a consciousness, it's an awareness. It's like they can't do that, that's not safe, etc. But it's not distrust. So in other words, with the government, I see people locked into a consciousness.
Yeah.
And so it's not a distrust. It's like an awareness, right? It's like with lions. Do I trust that I can sit next to? Is it a distrust? No, I trust if I sit close enough, I will become lunch. On an untamed lion and whatnot. So my point is just that it's not like it's a different. There's a different like it's kind of like this. Do I feel like a freeway is safe? I don't have a lot of fear towards it because I know how to navigate it, right? And so we don't have to have fear towards, like, would I want to stand in the middle of a freeway? No, I wouldn't. And so I think that when we have things in a perspective that doesn't evoke, like the chemtrails, for example, do I agree with them? No. Do I have a lot of fear towards them? I don't. So I would say that when we have a different relationship with them, we're not triggered by them. Does that make sense?
Totally.
So there was a time when I was triggered by the government. There was a time when I was triggered by the medical system and whatnot. And I see it in a different way. Like, how are they going to help me heal myself when they didn't even know how to get my body to heal itself? Well, how can I be mad at them for that? And much respect for our medical community. And I'm not, it's just, I have a different perspective that I don't have these triggered feelings. And so.
Is it like a perception thing in that, okay, I can acknowledge that I don't want something or I don't agree with something, but I can do that without making them wrong, right? So if I look at the government apparatus, I can acknowledge factually, objectively what they're doing, and maybe I don't prefer that, or I disagree with that. But like your 3-year-old and like the lion, they can only be the way they are because that's who and what they are at their level of consciousness, right? So I can like not want to engage at the level of consciousness at which they operate, but I can also not make them wrong for being that way because they're playing their part in the great cosmic play, right?
Exactly.
They're part of the equation. As I said earlier, that I signed up for this, and there's a part of me that's going, why did you do that? You know what I mean? It's like, you chose to come here, but it really is, to me, it's a perception game. Kind of like, as you're saying, you can view what's going on now as this great awakening of humanity where we're starting to go, wait, what is this system? Like, let's build a parallel system that is in service of love and nature and one another, right? Rather than trying to tear down the system. So there's a part of me sees like so much positivity, but when I get down in the nitty gritty because of the patterns that you're uncovering, there's still a part of me that's like, yeah, that's fine, but still fuck them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but this is the thing, right? This is how I feel, is it wouldn't exist if somebody's creating it didn't simultaneously exist. Like, in other words, it's kind of, there's a right hand and a left hand. So in other words, like, even with like, okay, so part of what happened in my own accident, right, is if you think about it, like with the car accident, like I feel like if my energy was not aligned with that car accident, then unfortunately it would have been somebody else. But so it's like I can't blame the other person because my own energy was then aligned with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So what I would say is that all, like even with the systems, the way they're set up, a lot of people, they think they're powerless. And so they're waiting for somebody to come in and save them, save the jobs or the this or the that or whatnot. And they're waiting.
A lot of people wearing red hats are realizing a lot of disappointment right about now.
Okay. So
case in point.
So my point is that, but what happens if more and more people wake up to, oh, we create our lives? Oh, our thoughts actually help create our lives, and we do need to step up into our own power and then create. Yeah, it's just I think it's like the things that I see people heal from and change their lives. And I've worked with people who literally, have gone from losing millions of dollars to making hundreds of millions of dollars, to people who couldn't get by
on that program.
Right? Right? I have one person I work with is about to hit $1 billion this year. So,
wow.
And
are they doing it in a way that benefits humanity?
Yep.
Wow, incredible. I'm assuming so.
And
you probably wouldn't want to work with someone. They're one of the bad guys.
Exactly. But the reason I started working with this person was experiencing health issues due to financial stress, due to financial loss and all of that. And then it was like, okay, well, this is how you want to change your mindset towards money, towards this, and so it ended up, the body's giving us a message to change, and it's just beautiful. And sometimes that it relates to health, just somebody's relationships. Sometimes it's a mixture of money or life or victim patterns or whatever it is. But it's, I would just say that if it's like when we really understand what the message is that our body's trying to give us, and we really change, the patterns change in a more beautiful way than we could imagine. And in my own life, if you ask me, did I want to change? No, I didn't want to change. I even resisted changing, and I could tell you where I was stubborn. And then I was like, you know what? If this is what I need to do to heal, I don't care what it is. I will do anything. And so
even change.
Even change. Yes. Yes. That's actually, by the way, I mentioned earlier that I listened to Michael Jackson, Man in the Mirror, because in it says, I'm going to make a change. It's going to feel really good. So I had to program myself that I'm going to change and it's going to feel good, because I did. I had a resistance to change. And, you know, and a lot of people do at some level. And like you wisely said earlier, part of you wants to change, part of you didn't. And it's kind of like, you know, most people feel that way at a deeper level in the mind. And it's like driving with one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake. It makes change feel really hard. But it's kind of like this. Bingo. It's like, bingo. I was really angry with my doctors. There was a point where I was very, very angry with my doctors. There was one time where I went in and I was having a procedure done. And I had become so afraid of medications that I didn't want extra medications, because I read something about medications being one of the top one of the leading causes of death from people. And not only that, but I was on Vioxx. And then Vioxx was taken off the market for killing people. And then nobody would tell me why it was taken off the market. And then I found that. And then I went through this phase of, you know, between the not wanting to get chemicals and this and that, it was just like this phase of just being so upset and scared and paranoid about everything, right? And so I went in to get another procedure. So I have nerve ablations and trigger point injections or whatnot. And basically, a long story short, they wanted to give me additional, you know, morphine or Dilaudid or something. They were giving me some type of, and I was like, let me just try it without it, right? And so I had this medical procedure, and I was like, okay, well, at the end, they wanted to get, and I said, let me just try it without it. And basically, the nurse said, okay, well, you're declining it. And then like 20 minutes later, I was like profusely sweating, like, and I was like, okay, never mind. I'll take that. And she was like, nope, you said no. And I was like,
really?
Well, I was in so much pain. And I was like, but, you know, and she was like, no, yeah. And I was like, and I was already on pill morphine anyway. So I just took one of my pills and took a pill morphine, but I was so upset. And then I was like, I just want to leave. And she's like, no, you cannot leave until you urinate. And I was like, so my point is, there were times, and because they had already made a bunch of mistakes when I was there, like there was a point where they were getting me ready for the procedure, and I looked over and my whole arm looked like a balloon because they accidentally missed my vein, and my whole arm was like huge. So I think that's why she was not so thrilled with me, because I was, you know, being the natural one who was, and again, this was, 20 years ago now or whatnot, but they missed the vein. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm trying to do things naturally. And she didn't seem too happy about that. So then when I was like, oh, look, I just want to leave. She's like, can't till you go to the restroom. And I was so upset. So, and I left there, by the way. I said some not so nice things to her, which was not nice, but I left and I thought, nobody is ever going to have more say over my health than me. Like, I have to figure this out. For somebody to say, no, you declined it, and then wouldn't, it's like, it was just like, but because I wanted to do things the natural way. It was like she was like kind of her repercussion for doing that. But
punishing you.
Yeah. Like, oh, fine, you're doing it naturally, fine.
Yeah.
How's that going for you? But I had this feeling that was like, you know what? Nobody is ever going to have more say over my body than me. I have to figure this out. So different things motivated me at different times. Sometimes it was, it was just like, I have to figure this out. So my point, though, is that to ultimately heal, though, I did need to let go of the upset towards it. And
God damn it.
Well said.
Well, man, it's like, I think it's part of human nature, at least it's part of my nature. There's a certain juice that the ego gets out of self-righteous anger and blame. You know, there's something very insidious about it. There's a payoff to it, right? Of being right and someone else being wrong. As you were talking about this earlier, kind of in a social justice warrior kind of.
Okay, so
finding virtue in being the right one, and you're calling out the ones that are wrong.
Okay, yes, and so that's the whole thing. Is that okay? So if that's the whole point, is we can get those things miswired. It's kind of like this. If somebody spends their whole life feeling like there's injustices and pointing out to others that it's wrong, is that the spiritual, like, is that the level of harmony at a deeper level one would want?
Right. I got to shut my Telegram channel down.
Okay, but wait a second.
Oh, go on.
It's doing it in a place though. Okay, so watch this. So let's say, watch it. Let's say I'm like, oh, the medical community, they suck and they're this or that or whatnot. Or saying, hey, look, they're lovely. They're doing the best they can. Yes, but what if God, universe, divine energy has given the body ability to heal itself? What if we all tapped into that? Now, by the way, it's even written in the Bible. 3,000 years ago, a merry heart is a medicine to the body. Ill thoughts will dry the bone. So, I mean, this is literally woven throughout spirituality in a billion different ways, or even, you know, the medical community, of course, would say stress affects the physical body. We know that. It's just the level of depth of real change that it takes. So kind of like this. You and I, even as we've talked about your pain, you've seen it go up and you've seen it go back down and you've seen it go back up, right? And so that's the problem, is it really does take a different way. So the good thing, like, you can see the mind-body connection. By the way, you want to do a fun little exercise?
Sure.
To just see it?
Sure.
Okay. So, let's do this. That'll be fun. Let's do this. Okay. So it's an empowerment exercise. So I call it the gift mind body healing empowerment exercise. And it's this. Okay. So if I ask you, I don't know if you can do this. Are you able to, put your hands behind your back as far as you can? Do you have room to do that? Okay. As far as you can?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, so now can you relax them for a second? And, all right. So go back as far as you can again. Okay. And that's as far as you can go, right?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So go ahead and relax them. And now I'm going to ask you to do this as best you can with your energy. And so if I ask you to think about all the love and connectedness in life, and love and connection and sweetness and fun and kindness and camaraderie and your friends and connectedness and love and sweetness and joy and laughter and playfulness and success and winning, and just that feeling of feeling just so connected to people and life and camaraderie and sweetness. I want you to notice, what does that feel like? The camaraderie, sweetness, connectedness. What does it feel like? What does it look like? The camaraderie, the connectedness.
Feels safe.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you to breathe. And can you put your arms back again the same way? As far as you can go. Okay, and if I ask you, bingo. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to breathe. And I want you to think about loving your wife. Loving your wife and the sweet connection and the sweetness and love and camaraderie, closeness. And I'm going to ask you to go back, see if you can go back even further. Bingo. All right. And so, bingo. All right. So go ahead and relax your arms and we'll try this. Let's go the other direction real quick. Let's go the other direction. All right. So I'm going to ask you to breathe. And I want you to think about the annoying troopers. The annoying troopers and the COVID and the government and all those people, the literally the politics, the this, the that, the blah, 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 blah. And all of that stuff that's been going on. And the level of frustration and just the annoyance of people and this and that and the frustration towards people, etc., all of these things. And so I'm going to ask you to notice what that feels like. And the frustration and the people and everything that they're doing in this world and the chemtrails and the blah, blah, blah and all of this stuff. And I'm going to ask you to breathe. And I'm going to ask you to go ahead and stretch your arms out again. Okay. And so, bingo. All right. So let me do this. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and relax. Bingo. So let's do this. I need you to shift your energy even more. And there's that. Bingo. So if we do that, bingo, give me 1 second. Because of that, bingo. Exactly. All right. So if I ask you, what would it feel like if you could trust people? What would that feel like?
Relaxing.
And if I ask you, what would that feel like if you knew you could count on people, you knew you could trust them, you knew 100% that's just your pattern in life. You attract people, life situations, circumstances all around you where you feel like you're being respected, you're respecting others, you're not being taken advantage of, but instead you're feeling respected, you're feeling good, you're feeling safe, you're feeling connected. This is how you're feeling. What does that look like? What is that level of trust? What would that look like in your life? Bingo.
Yeah, peace and ease.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you to breathe. And that feeling of trusting people, that's how your life, that's just your patterns in life. You feel like you can trust people. You feel that sense of just trusting people. And what does that look like and what does that feel like? That's your pattern. That's just the way life unfolds for you. You feel like you can count on people. You feel like you absolutely, that's just your pattern. That's just how life is. What else would that feel like?
The word that comes to mind is just flow and ease.
Flow and ease.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you to breathe. Bingo. If I ask you if you can spread your arms again. Okay. And bingo. You can so the thing go back a little bit further. Bingo. And bingo. So I'm going to ask you to breathe. And that's why. Give me 1 second. That. Bingo. Okay. So, all right. So super, super authentic. Here we go. Super real. Super real. Can you see the part of you, even as I say, and I mentioned getting rid of the anger? You can go ahead and relax your arms, by the way. But getting rid of the anger and the upset, can you see the part of you that feels like it fuels your mission and fuels your passion and what you're doing? Can you see that? Okay. So if I told you that anger fuels my mission and my passion, what would you say?
I would say you're creating a lot more resistance for yourself than is necessary, and that you would be a lot more effective without it.
Okay. That's great advice. I like it. So if I ask you 0 to 10, how much you have felt like you need it. So as we're trying to shift this anger out, if I ask you how much you have felt like you needed it to make the difference that you want to make, 0 to 10, how much would you say you've needed it? Or you feel like you've needed it?
I mean, in the moment right now, I feel that I need it very little.
Bingo.
Yeah.
And 10 minutes ago, if I asked you how much you felt like you needed it?
Yeah, a bit more. A little more of that clinging to it.
5, 6, 7. Bingo. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so the thing of it is that bingo. Bingo. So this is what's great is that bingo. Okay, and if I ask your level of pain, what's your level of pain right now? 0 to 10?
Out of 4.
Out of 4. Okay. And here we go. So let's go ahead and see if we can just bring it down. And what we would do is that bingo. Okay. So I'm going to ask you to breathe. And I want you to notice 0 to 10 how much you feel like anger has been protecting you from getting hurt again. What would you say?
Probably 5.
That's what I would say. 5, 5, 6. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to breathe. Bingo. So this is the thing, right? So let me reflect this to you because I'm actually not going to push anymore, and this is why. So watch this. So if I told you I went through a childhood trauma that left me in a place of distrust, and the way that I have felt safe is to not trust, to hold on to distrust, and also hold on to anger as a way of keeping myself safe, right? So if I go to let go of the anger, how safe does it feel to let go of the anger? What would you say?
Right now, it feels quite safe.
I would agree. I would say that if I ask your body if it wants to let it go or if it still wants to hold on to it, it says about a level 2. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if I told you I feel like it's safe to hold on to anger at a level 2, then what happens is if I let go of anger even more, but I feel like I still need it for safety, then I'm just going to trigger into what? Fear. Feels unsafe.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I feel unsafe, so it's not going to create a healing state because I trigger between those two. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's interesting.
So remember when I said earlier, I said a lot of times if somebody's been in an accident, they'll hold on to fear to try to keep themselves safe, and then they try to let go of fear. It feels unsafe to do, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So what would I want to do with your nervous system to help you align with healing? Number one, so what I would say is it's technically it's in chapter 13 of my book, but it's,
and I have a copy. Thankfully.
Yes. So, but it's that feeling of feeling like that every emotion that we have, everything that the brain does, it does for a reason, right? If it's holding on to illness, it's a reason. If it's holding on to fear, it's a reason. And so what's happening is it holds, like yours is holding on to anger because for multiple reasons. So there's layers to it. It feels like it's righteous. It feels like it deserves to. It feels like it's a good person for doing it. It feels like it's fueling your business to do that and your purpose and your mission. And you want to make a bigger mission and bigger difference, which I love your heart so much. It's just beautiful. And it also feels like it protects you. And so what happens is there's multiple reasons that your body wants to hold on to this anger and this upset. And then also, does it feel safe to trust? It doesn't necessarily. Now, this is why. Is imagine if I said, that's fake, that's fake, that's fake, that's fake, doesn't feel safe to trust, right? Now, how safe does it feel to trust? Well, it doesn't because I feel like I'm looking at things in a way of distrust. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so, like if I ask you, does it feel safe for you to just trust people?
Depends on the people.
Okay.
If they have a title, probably much less so.
Okay. So the thing of it is, is that, and notice, you're smiling, you feel good about that also, right? So, so there's a lot of emotions connected to that. So in other words, could I keep pushing? I could, right? And what I would do normally with somebody is I would take the specific reasons it's still linked up and then shift it so then somebody really feels differently. And then I would say, all right, now get this programmed in. That's the state of healing that's needed to create that, right? So that's the thing, is that's what you'd ultimately want to do. Now, the thing of it is to get the real change that you would want, you'd need to develop a way of seeing the world that is safe. So this is also the reason why I say that, so often people just go to try to get rid of childhood patterns, but it's not the full answer. And this is what I mean. It's kind of like this. If I stop speaking English, am I suddenly going to be able to speak German?
No,
right? So what happens is so often these patterns start in childhood, and they're a patterned way of being, feeling, thinking, perceiving. They're these patterns. And so the thing of it is, we don't have a new way to be with it. We don't have a German or a different language to speak yet, a different way of seeing it that is now safe and allows us to have that sense of safety in a different way, right? And so what would need to happen is that establishing that new pattern and that new patterned way of being is key to move it forward. So a new consciousness, if you will. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
So let's say, for example, if you ask me, do I trust people? Yes. Do I feel like I trust a 3-year-old to drive a car? No. Do I trust people to do everything perfect in our government? I don't. But it's not in a fearful way. So I'm not triggered by it. I have a sense of awareness, but I also have a sense of safety in my being. And I'm not angry about it. I'm not upset. Like I understand how it is. And so I don't feel threatened by it. I don't feel unsafe by it. I don't feel angry by it. I don't feel triggered by it. It is.
Yeah.
So I don't not see it. I'm not like, oh, I don't know that exists.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? I just have no triggers regarding it because I have a sense of safety from universe, from awareness, from empowerment, from consciousness that I just don't have that trigger. Does that make sense?
Beautiful. I want it.
Right?
Yeah. No, I mean, there are times, of course, when I have access to that in a meaningful way, but there are also times when I don't,
And that's why, remember when I said people all the time are thinking positive, but they're not putting it into a patterned way of being?
Mm-hmm.
Bingo. That. So it's really about shifting the consciousness and creating it as a patterned way of being.
In my mid-50s here, I've reached a point where I'm not trying to do more for my health. I'm all about doing less, but doing it better. The thing is, stacking supplements and protocols only gets you so far if your body never actually resets. That's why I lean hard into infrared sauna therapy. I've been doing it for, almost 30 years now. For me, it's hands down one of the most reliable ways to downshift my nervous system, improve recovery, and support better sleep and detox. And the sauna I love and use is the Amplify sauna from Sunlighten. Sunlighten spent over 25 years refining patented infrared technology to deliver the wavelengths your body responds to best. Full spectrum infrared, higher heat, faster sessions. I hop in that bad boy, get a real sweat, and get out without wasting a second of my valuable time. And with consistent use, it supports your body's natural detox pathways, which in today's world is an absolute must. And Sunlighten has got a serious hookup for you. Visit lukestory.com/sunlighten and use the code LukeStory to save up to $1,600 on your purchase. Plus, get free shipping and additional discounts throughout the year. Because being healthy isn't about doing more. It's about setting the conditions for your body to clear what it never needed in the first place. So again, this life-changing technology can be found at lukestory.com/sunlighten. And if you know what's good for you, definitely want to input that code LukeStory to save you up to $1,600. It's really interesting looking at that, just focusing on anger, for example. It doesn't manifest for me really anywhere in my life except said target, the system itself. Like I'm not easily annoyed or bothered by people. I don't, you know what I mean? Like I don't get in arguments with people. I have no drama in my interpersonal relationships.
I was like, after this, are you going to be angry? No, I'm just
yeah. But you know what I mean? Because I used to be very angry and very resentful at everyone all the time. And it's interesting now because I wouldn't think of myself as an angry person, but when we touch on the topic that we have of the, of the matrix overlords, it seems like my anger is isolated toward that system.
Okay.
But I don't really feel it in other areas of my life. Does that make sense?
Yes. Can I expand on that?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just, I never thought about that, but it's interesting because I didn't even know I was mad at the system really until we started digging into it. And I go, okay, I got to admit. Yeah.
So this is what's interesting. That's the reason that patterns are so hard. And this is what I mean, is that if you think about the stereotypes, if I go back to the woman with the abusive father who leaves him and finds the abusive boyfriend, boss, spouse, etc.
Yeah.
Typically in her life, is everybody abusive, or the rest of her family saying, get away from him, he's abusive, and just he's abusive, right?
Right.
So the way that patterns show up is a sliver of your life, or they can show up globally, but a lot of times they are that sliver that shows up, that then shows up and perpetuates, but then they show up in a variety of different ways. So it's both. And so bingo. So that's what's tricky about it, is because then what happens is so often you go, but it's them, but it's this. And so the way to think about it though is like, notice even in your 20s, when I said, oh, the trigger was regarding women then, which has nothing to do with the abuse and it has nothing to do with the politics now.
Right.
That's what's tricky, is that it shows up in completely different ways. So it's the actual emotional pattern that feels like, if I ask you how much there was a part of you that even felt like almost taken advantage of from women in your 20s, what would you say?
It's probably the other way around.
Go ahead.
My 20s.
Okay. So there's a distrust.
Yeah.
Let me put it this way.
I don't think I ever allowed myself to be vulnerable enough to be taken advantage of.
Bingo. But I would say, okay, so let me put it in a different way. A caution about not being taken advantage of.
Sure.
Okay. So bingo. And if I ask you 0 to 10, how much?
Probably like 6.
Okay. And if I ask you how much right now you have a caution of not being taken advantage of by the government, what would you say?
10.
So notice that feeling. Yes. So it's the same, like, okay, I'm not going to let you in. I'm watching you. I don't trust you. And I'll keep you at arm's length. And sure, you're in my life, but I'm skeptical of you and I'm not going to let you hurt me. And yeah, it's that feeling.
Yeah.
So that's the pattern. Bingo. Bingo. But then the problem are like the little things, like the, like you said, the letter in the mail then triggers it. The troopers then trigger it. The this, the that. It's like the news, the
Epstein files.
What? You don't trust those?
I could list them all. Yeah.
That's so weird. So but that's the thing is that it's like, it's just like, I guess when you just know it, you don't. Yeah, like it's bingo. I guess how I feel about it is I feel a huge sense of compassion for all of those people that went through that. And also, okay, so a huge sense of compassion. All right, I'm gonna tell you, by the way, okay, so I don't mention this very often because it's not really a thing for me anymore. But after I healed, I still felt like I needed a doctor to validate everything, right? It was like a thing. So my point, so technically speaking, a couple years later, so I had this feeling of also distrust towards the medical community, right? And I had this feeling that I didn't realize that I had, because I healed and I worked on like the 9/11 stuff and I healed all that stuff, right? And I healed because that was like the survivor's guilt, all of those things, right? There was a pattern I didn't heal. And it was this, like so often I had like, because I was always getting like procedures and I always had to take off my clothes. And then I always had these like, and then I always felt like I had all these men's hands all over me doing like trigger point injection, all of these things, blah, blah, blah. So I still had this upset towards the medical community after I healed, but it was in a different type of way, but it was like the violation piece. Anyways, long story short, after I healed, I got better. I actually also had another trauma, which was my second kind of 2x4 lesson, which was basically my last doctor, actually, he raped me, right? And then he took pictures of it. So he did end up in prison for it.
What the?
Yeah, there was that. There was that. So my point is, yeah.
Oh my God.
But it's so don't put energy regarding it.
Dude. Oh God.
So, yes, I think he got out of prison a couple years ago now. So there was that. So my point is, don't look like that. Don't put energy towards it.
Did you regress into the pain after that happened?
No, that was a different pattern.
Wow.
So, but don't put wow around it. Don't put a bunch of, this is the thing. My point is, okay, no, but this is what it did do to me, though. This was the thing. Okay. So, don't keep looking at me.
Sorry, I'm shook. I can't. I'm
yeah. So,
I'm
okay.
happy that you've arrived at a place of peace, but that one caught me off guard.
I know that. That's why I don't mention it so often. But then it sounds like I'm being insensitive towards other people, like the Epstein files and this and that and the other. So then it sounds like I'm insensitive, and it's not. I've been through my stuff and had to clean it up.
Yeah.
And so that's why I don't mention it a lot of times, is because I don't want other people to feel like they have to process at the speed that I process. But this is what it did do, is this. Don't be shook anymore. Done. Shake it off.
I'm with you. I'm back.
Shake it off. All right. So this is the thing. So long story short, so I was speaking at different events or whatnot, but then it was like right after, anyways. So, yeah, so that happened, but he took pictures on it. So then I took his phone and then I gave it to the police, and then all of that happened. So anyway, and then eventually he confessed and whatnot. And so he just went to or no contest, I think is what he did. So anyways, the good thing is he took pictures. So that helped with the whole thing. So, and he can't do it to anybody else. So anyways, so that happened. But this is what happened from that. After I healed, I was actually telling people this. It was this thing of, there were so many things. All right, we unpacked a whole nother thing. I know, right? There's that.
It's all good.
So I call it my 2x4 lessons. So my one was my injury, and then this other one that happened. And what happened from it was a couple things. Was that after my injury, I wanted people to heal, and what I would do is I would say, you've got to work through this pattern, you've got to work through this pattern. And so I had never really, I thought that just people going through traditional therapy, I thought, well, if they can just go through traditional therapies, if they just know what emotions are affecting them, they can just heal themselves, right? They can just heal themselves. So for me, sharing my research about the mind-body connection and how it works and all of that stuff was huge. What happened after that doctor event, that whole thing happened, is that I started sharing with people that I had this channel. Because it was like this, what's the way to put it? Is that it was really weird for me to be able to channel information. And so from my background, channeling information was just weird. So then after that happened, was when I was like, all right, look, you just have to be real with your trauma. You have to look at it. You have to then clear it. It was just like this. It made me step up more and just say, you know what? It made me so many things. it, gosh, like as I'm thinking through, because again, a lot of times I leave that topic out just because it wasn't part of my healing. It was a different part, but not my physical healing. And I would say this. So after I healed, I actually I started working with that doctor. Is actually like I started. So then basically like I would help people, and I would help them with like, I thought people are going to think this is weird, healing with the mind, right? And this was back in 2010, right? So what I would do is I would talk to people and I would say something like this, I would help them with their diet. And I would say, if you just eat healthy and yada, yada. And that was kind of like the way I would talk to them. I'd say, look, and then I would say, stress can also affect your body as well. And this was prior to the whole rape thing, that. But I would say, stress can affect your body as well. And I would say, for example, if you were feeling a sense of anger, or let's say you have resentment towards your son, that could affect you too. And then somebody would go like this, oh my gosh, that is exactly what I was feeling, was that resentment towards my son. And I would say, oh, well, you should work on that. And I would just tell people they should work on it. They should go to therapy and process it and all of these things, right? Or I'd work with somebody else. And I would say, oh, eat a healthy diet. And then I would say, well, if you're feeling, resentment towards your husband or something like that, stress can affect the body too. And they would go, oh my gosh, that's exactly. And then I would say, well, okay, great. Well, why don't you work on that and go to therapy and whatnot? So I thought that like, if I could just tell them the mind-body connection and what it was, that they could work on it, right? And so what then happened with that whole rape thing is that then I was like, okay, well, if this therapy thing is so great, let me go. And then I went there, and that's when I was like, oh, we need to work with the mind in a completely, like what I did to heal myself was completely different. I took so many things and worked with the mind in a different way. So in other words, it really became a catalyst. I feel like you're still looking at me like
no, I'm with you.
Okay, so
I see where you were going with this.
Yeah, it became a catalyst of working with the mind in a different way, because that's when I started really looking at the ways and seeing so many people had also been in therapy for 10, 20, 30, 40 years and still weren't getting the results. And so that became the catalyst in saying, okay, let me break down working with the mind in a different way as well. Because a lot of the things you hear with, like, in other words, going through my injury was when I started demystifying the meditation and the gratitude and this, and just putting logic behind it. All those things can be great. All of those things can be lovely and wonderful and great in the right way. So it's not anything negative about those things either. It's just when I started saying, okay, well, let me do the practical logic behind them, and how does this work and what do I need to do? And then I guess that part of me, after that whole rape thing happened, was then like, okay, well, here's the other piece, the therapy part. Let me unpack this a bit more. So anyway, it became a catalyst.
Totally. And it sounds like it really informed your model and your capacity to help people.
Hugely. Hugely.
Yeah.
So when I say that I don't have any upset or anger towards the medical community, you see that it's a really bit, like I just don't. I don't feel that way even towards that whole thing. Like, I don't. And that's part of the reason that I don't mention it, is because I feel like if I mention it in a flippant way where it's like, oh, that happened, that somebody else is, but then it was like the Epstein files come up. And then I'm like, and then people will think I'm being insensitive about it. And I'm not. It's not that I'm insensitive about it. It's that I've been through my own stuff. And what I would say is it like I had my own pattern of stuff, of feeling violated by men through like, and that was a whole different thing other than the healing thing, was this other pattern, right?
Totally.
Yes, so much so, this is horrible, and I'm going to tell you, like, so much so that I used to get hit on so much by older men when I was like a young teenager, that I started giving them the number to a local psychiatrist place. I memorized the number. So back then they didn't have I think you had pagers, but we didn't have cell phones. So then they would ask for my number, and I would give them the number to a mental institute.
That's funny.
Right. It was like this thing, like it was
Wow.
always this, yeah. So that, and
That's
then
a really good troll.
but now people would probably like dial it in on a cell phone number and whatnot.
Yeah.
But I had my own patterns in that area and
Yeah.
whatnot. And yeah.
Hot damn. Wow. This has been a wild ride. We're 3 hours and 5 minutes in.
Uh-oh.
Time flies when you're having fun.
It does. Uh-oh.
I mean, I feel
All
like
right.
I'm really glad we got the foundation at the beginning of the conversation, but I feel like there was a certain point when we got into the work that we just went into this flow state of timelessness, which is my favorite place to be. So I'm really grateful that you're willing to swim in these waters with me and experiment a bit. It's fun.
I love that. And it has been fun experimenting and playing and just being in the space of authenticity and sharing and timelessness.
Yeah, it's wild, right?
It is. I can't believe that.
Well, let's talk about your book here, Master Your Mind and Energy to Heal Your Body. Those watching on video can see the lovely cover right here. Very thick book, I might add. It's small font. There's a lot of information in here. Tell us, more about your book and about your work. You mentioned doing events and kind of demonstrations. Do you work with people one-on-one? For people that have listened and felt resonance to the point where they're hanging out with us for 3 hours, how can people interact with you more in the world? And is your book something someone like me could read and just be like, okay, follow these steps and I'm going to be able to talk to you 16 years from now and say, I remember I had this one woman on my podcast and I read her book and did everything in it and I haven't had back pain since then.
I'm going to tell you, this is where it's fantastic. What it does is it breaks it down. So if especially somebody who's logical, understands the biophotons, the energy of it, how the mind-body healing work. Like it's just like, it gives you a very practical understanding. And so it just makes it logical and doable. And it's just, and so that's what I love is it makes it accessible. And that's what's really great. Now, it also helps understand why the mind is so counterintuitive and you get it. So that's what's fantastic about it. The other challenging part, if you will, is that, let's be honest, it also takes being able to tune into your own body and own information. And it just does. Like every person's, so notice when I checked into your energy, obviously you and I hadn't spoke about different, like your 6-year-old thing that came up. You and I hadn't spoke about multiple different things, and yet you could feel the energy of that and you could see your pain go up and it go down. And that's, going in and out of emotions. That's the trigger point. So the great thing is we could see it, and that's the thing that you may not get from the book. And that's why, like, I do have a video course as well. What's amazing about that is it actually walks you through helping to amplify and lift your energy, and it has exercises to help do that, and also to help identify what's in your subconscious mind, and also a database that can help with, like, oh, this has been the issue. What are the combination? What are the different emotional ingredients to it? And yeah, and so that's what's really great about. So I do have a video course that really helps people at a deeper level.
Awesome.
So both are really great.
And do you still work with people one-on-one?
Limited. So I do also do a lot of speaking or classes or whatnot. So
yeah. So you do events too, where you have a group of people and you're walking them through the modality?
Yeah, I do that, or I do online events, and yeah.
Cool.
So both. Yeah.
Wow. Epic, man. Well, this has been really thought-provoking. You got me thinking about a lot of things. It happens so often, I sit down with someone and, obviously every guest has their own approach to wellness or spirituality or whatever we're talking about. And I always sit down thinking, I figured some stuff out. I've been at this for a while, and then I talk to someone like you and I'm like, oh man, I got a lot of work to do in this one area, which keeps it interesting for me. You know what I mean? It's rare that I sit down and I'm like, oh yeah, I've already heard all this. I already know all this. It's like, it's really beautiful to experience you and your gifts and to kind of inspire me to look at some things I haven't looked at.
I love that.
Yeah, it's cool.
I love that. Can I tell you, I love your heart, your authenticity, and it's just,
thank you.
yeah, You're beautiful.
Likewise. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Well, I have one final question for you, and it goes like this. Longtime listeners know what's coming. Who have been 3 teachers or teachings throughout your life that have influenced who you are today?
3 teachers who have influenced my life today. Okay, so always, I would say universe number 1. Like, especially with the channel and whatnot, that is like the more we listen in, that number 1 above that. So of all, I would say medical journals. So I would say that I'm a results person. So so I would say research on MPD has been a huge influence. Alexander Gerswich, information on biophotons, that. I would also say Louise Hay, love her. The idea that emotions could affect the body in a different way. I would say that is something, I would say that our outcomes are very different. Our work approach is very different in the emotions that I see that affect the body. Were different than hers, but I would say I have so much respect for her, such a pioneer. And I would say her work influenced me in a really positive way. So I would say that and just, I would say the biggest influences that have had the biggest impact would be, I would probably say that, and also network engineering, because it gave me like a very results-oriented mindset. So if I look at what has shaped me, the biggest teachers have been that, which is probably an odd answer, but that's the authenticity of what has shaped me. It would be that.
Beautiful. Well, I'm glad they shaped you into who you are. It's been a really great podcast today. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, you guys, before I let you go, I want to drop a reminder about one of the most fun ways to support the show. It's the official Luke Story merch collection, where every design is handpicked to reflect the lifestyle, the humor, and the mission behind this podcast. We've got classics over there like Meditation is My Medication, or Chemtrails Are Not Comtrails, plus newer hits like Microdoser and Conspiracy Analyst. So whether you're repping the freedom vibe, psychedelic credentials, or just want to start a fun conversation, it's all there. And each design is available in a grip of colors, even tie-dye, with sizes and styles for men, women, and even kids too. And of course, all the t-shirts are available in 100% cotton. So grab your favorite smartass design on a t-shirt, tank top, hoodie, or cap, or even a to-go cup for your favorite drink. And here is the link, drum roll please, lukestorymerch.com. Find your favorite design, scoop one up, and rock it proudly. Because these aren't just shirts and hats, you guys, they're signals. Little badges that say you're part of the tribe that values truth, style, and living outside of the matrix. You can check out the entire collection at lukestorymerch.com. Load up on the new drops and show the world what you stand for.